Hello, hello. It's always so weird because I have to wait for, obviously, like, whatever thing it is to get. Hello. How's everyone's day? How's everyone doing? I've had a very interesting day. I also learned today that okay, so I always used to think story time. I always used to think I was a person who was like really good at biting her tongue. I'm not. I'm truly not to do my job. Actually, fair enough. There you go. I I ended up quitting my job today. Don't worry, I have like another job, but I quit one of my jobs. And I was maybe like not super nice when I did it. But that was cool. How was everybody else's day? Hopefully it was good. Okay, well, I don't know where the fuck Tommy is, so I'm just gonna do music. Oh my god, you have an exam tomorrow? My god. That would also probably be the end of me too. Holy fuck, was that loud? And I actually think I just blew my eardrums. It was probably gonna lag just like a smidge. Just a smidge. It'll lag. Okay, I don't know what chapter I'm going to. I'm probably gonna go for like a minute. This'll probably go for like a minute. I assume because it ends on chapter 1150. So let's see if I can get 20 chapters in today. And then we'll end just shy. And like, or end right now if it lags and it doesn't work. And we'll see what happens. So let's try and get to how many chapters I need. And then that way I can do, I also, for this whole week, I don't know why, I was a day behind. So I thought today was Thursday for the entire time. And like, was not getting the days right. But we'll see. So this could go on for a while. I could be here for like the next 4 hours, 5 hours. It just fully depends on how fast we read and like how much we do. Truly. Also, hello. Okay, without further ado. Chapter 1107, Relax. As a hunter who had shadow cloaked Donnetz's hiding and monitoring abilities were able pretty good. Back then, he had even helped Gammon Sparrow lay an ambush for Steel Mavetti. At this moment, he didn't show any traces of himself, but he felt a little bored. He was eager for Anderson to switch with him as soon as possible. When will such a life end? Vice Admiral Elmet, hurry up and appear. No, not now. It's better to wait until Anderson arrives. Donnetz did some introspection and rationality until his prayer. He was worried that a pirate admiral at Vice Admiral Elmet Tracy would discover that he was hiding in the dark, and he lacked the courage and confidence to deal with her. Of course, if he wore the boxing glove... Why a luck enhancement ritual? Y'all got me scared of whatever happens at the end of this volume. Of course, if he wore the boxing glove, everything wouldn't be a problem. As long as he made the decision fast enough, and fear and apprehension wouldn't be able to catch up to him. You seem very troubled. Suddenly, a voice rang beside Donnetz's ear. Donnetz jumped out of the shadows in shock as an orange flame quickly formed in his hand. At the same time, he cast his gaze at the source of the voice. He saw Anderson hiding in the woods. There were green vines stuck to his head and seemed to meld into the environment. Dog shit. It was unknown if Donitz was cursing Anderson or himself. After vanishing his anger, he asked, "When did you come?" 2 minutes ago, Anderson replied with a smile. "You hid well. I didn't manage to find you immediately, so I followed your hiding habits and casually asked a question." No, I remember it now. Don't even start with me. I remember it now. Donitz was momentarily unsure if he should be proud or angry. He asked with mixed feelings, "If I had remained calm just now, would you have failed to discover me?" "In theory," Anderson said with a smile, completely unfazed. But as an experienced hunter, there can only be one way. Just as Donitz was about to ask what other solutions there were, he suddenly saw Bartz extinguish the candle and prepare to sleep. 2 minutes later, the figure of intelligence peddler Bartz appeared at the window of darkness with a nimble leap. He landed into the shadows outside the house. That was where Donitz had been hiding. Having re-entered the shadows, he almost stepped to his target. Bartz walked towards the sea under the cover of the shadows. Dog shit. Only then did Donitz appear, giving Bartz his middle finger. Anderson also left the woods. He had pulled out the branches from his head and smiled at Donitz. "I think we'll hit the jackpot tonight." Donitz glanced at the strongest hunter the fog sea and noted vigorously, "I hope it's Vice Admiral Ailment." He used the shadows that were everywhere at night to immediately took the lead in following the intelligence peddler. Along with Anderson, they maintained a perfect, adequate distance. "Not too stupid," Anderson observed for a moment before chuckling. Donitz scoffed inwardly but didn't respond. He knew very well that he wasn't an occasion where he could afford the mock and provoke each other. 15 minutes later, Bartz arrived at the beach and stood there, staring at the dark blue sea under the crimson moonlight. He didn't wait too long. In the darkness of the sea, a huge outline appeared, gradually forming a black ship with white flag fluttering in the air. On the flag, 2 ghostly blue flames burned with a pitch-black skull. The Black Death, Vice Admiral Ailment Tracy's flagship. Black Death. Donitz instantly became excited. If not for his shadow form, his pupils would have dilated to bid a draw in more light to see every detail of the ship. He subconsciously moved a distance forward, hoping to confirm if Vice Admiral Ailment Tracy was on the ship. As the gigantic sailboat approached, the 2 people in the shadows could see sailors busy on the deck. Is there a dock for docking here? Or will they have to get Bartz a dinghy and get him to row himself over? Just as these thoughts flashed through Donitz's mind, he heard Anderson say with a suppressed voice, "Leave." Ah? Donitz's greatest strength was that he was good at following the instructions of an authoritative figure. Be it in front of Edwina Edwards or Gammon Sparrow, he would follow the instructions to T. Apart from grumbling at most, it was the moment, although his face was filled with puzzlement, with the intention to retort, and persist his own plans, he still used the shadows to silently leave the beach. When they could no longer see the Black Death and could only see the vague crashing of the waves, did Donitz leave the shadows and appear in front of the forest. He hurriedly asked, "Aren't we going to confirm if Vice Admiral Ailment is aboard?" Anderson sized up Donitz and chuckled. "Never underestimate a beyonder who's very famous at sea, but has lived to this day. Every pirate admiral is a target you must be careful against. You must never be careless." Donitz subconsciously replied, "Admiral Blood Sr., Admiral Hal Ludwell?" They were all pirates who were easily killed by a particular crazy adventurer. Anderson was momentarily at a loss for words to rebuke Donitz with. After a few seconds, he said, "No, it's Vice Admiral Ailment Tracy worth paying more attention to considering how she survived Gammon Sparrow's attack." After careful thought, Donitz inexplicably felt Anderson's word made sense. Just as he was about to speak, his throat suddenly felt itchy as he coughed. After coughing a few times, his throat began to swell in pain, and he could taste metal. "Look, I told you to be careful." Anderson clenched his fists and held them to his mouth. He coughed lightly, but it wasn't as serious as Donitz. Tracy must have spread all kinds of ailments around the ship. Once anyone approaches it, they'll quickly be infected with it and exposed. With this wide of a range, it means that she has completely digested the Sequence 5 potion and has a chance of advancing to Sequence 4. Kami, we were actually just talking about Leo Klein. It's almost like you could sense it. Why couldn't it be that she has already advanced to Sequence 4? As she fell from the source of infection, Donitz quickly recovered and instinctively retorted, "If that were the case, you were either on the Black Death or you have a victim of the Black Death disease and you are in your deathbed." Anderson half turned his body and cast his gaze towards the obstructed beach. Tracy must have used some sort of trick. It's unlike her to be able to maintain the target area from ailments and be in the front, if not other 3 directions. Instead, she used the wind to spread the ailment to infect the people on the shore. With that said, Anderson clapped his hands and smiled again. "Isn't our encounter proof that Vice Admiral Ailment is on the ship? You can inform Gammon Sparrow." Donitz didn't hesitate any further. He immediately set up the ritual and summoned the messenger. Using the excuse of guarding the area to prevent any accidents, Anderson walked out of the forest. It was 3 in the morning in Backlin East Borough. Apart from the moonlight and starlight, it was pitch black. Wearing cotton pajamas and a sleeping cat to protective hair, Kyne sat on the bed and received a letter from Annette Tinker without asking anything. Opening the letter, he calmly got out of bed, took a pen out of his pocket, and wrote back on the letter, "Return to the port city and await further instructions." After watching Miss Messenger leave, he calmly changed into his shirt, put on his vest, tied his bow tie, and put on a black trench coat. Then he took 4 steps counterclockwise and went above the gray fog. Using the topaz spear pendulum to divine the danger level of operations, he received almost no revelations. Without any hesitation, he returned to the real world and stood in front of the mirror. He picked up his half-top hat and wore it above his head. On the bunk bed in the room outside, Conus and Eniu opened their eyes. In an empty room on the Black Death, a figure quickly outlined itself. He had black hair and brown eyes with a cold and harsh facial features. He was none other than Gairman Sparrow. Under the dim crimson moonlight, Kyne swept his gaze and casually found a chair to sit down as he admired the sea vista outside. In the captain's cabin, one level away, Vice Admiral Ailment Tracy, who was dressed in the white blouse and beige pants, watched Bart leave the room in disgust. She pulled at her collar out of reflex, and her exasperation turned livid. She had just learned that Blazing Donnets and the strongest hunter, Anderson, had been staying in Theros Island recently with unknown motives. They were all related to Gairman Sparrow. "Is that fellow looking for me?" Tracy narrowed her eyes as she... Pausing. Okay, I'm going. There you go. I sent it. At this moment, her thoughts suddenly turned sluggish. It was as if she had sunken into a state where she knew she was in the dream, but was unable to exaggerate from it no matter how hard she tried. No good. Black flames abruptly emerged from the surface of Tracy's body, attempting to burn away any external influences. However, while the flames were initially able to flow smoothly, later being turned immediate as they kept falling to the ground like withering petals. A strong sense of despair surged within Tracy as her thoughts turned increasingly slower. Despite she quickly condensed a layer of crystalline ice around her body, retracting the invisible threads towards her and wrapped herself in layers. At that moment, the door to the captain's cabin creaked open. Wearing a silk top hat and black trench coat, Gairman Sparrow walked in. Then he politely closed the door. With a light creaking sound, the entire captain's cabin instantly became extremely quiet. The sound of crashing waves was no longer present, as though they had been separated from the real world. As an invisible spider webs that entangled Tracy, that seemed to misunderstand the order that was given to her, tightly bound, Vice Admiral Ailment prevented her from moving or using beyond her powers. Distortion. As her thoughts returned to normal, her brain no longer felt frozen. What do you want to do? She could hide her fear as she watched Gairman Sparrow slowly approach. What she couldn't understand was why the other party would give up on the attempt to make a marionette even though she had clearly lost her ability to resist. The reason why Kyne did so was because he was worried that Vice Admiral Ailment and the Demoness of White were related by blood. This way, Tracy's death would cause the demigod, who was good at hexes, to sense something and take measures ahead of time. Tap, tap, tap. Kyne stopped in front of the Demoness. I love him so much. I love him so much, so much, so much. Also, bye, Louvre. No, literally. Gairman Sparrow could, bro, he could hit me with a car. I love him so much. Gairman Sparrow's silence made Tracy's heart sink, as though she had fallen into an ice cavern. When she saw despair surface on Vice Admiral Ailment's face, Kyne took out a piece of paper from his pocket. With the flick of his wrist, he made it fly towards like a poker card. With a whoosh, the slip of paper cut through the tiny portion of the invisible spiderwebs like a piece of metal. It tore open the translucent ice crystal and lacerated Tracy's left arm, causing blood to splatter. The surface of the paper was quickly dyed with bright red tinge before it bombarded back to the trapped demoness into Klein's palm. Tracy originally imagined that the piece of paper would come at her throat, but she never expected it to only target her arm. She was momentarily stunned. Only when Gammon Sparrow folded the piece of paper and placed it onto the iron cigar case did he suddenly realize something. She asked, "Your true target is Katerina." Klein placed the iron cigar case back in his pocket without answering. He calmly asked, "You are her descendant?" Upon hearing this, Tracy, who was still trapped by the ice crystal and spider silk, suddenly let out a low laugh. "I'm not just a descendant, I'm her child. Daughter." As Klein rejoiced over the caution in not recklessly killing her, causing Demoness of White Katerina to sense something, he subconsciously analyzed whether Katerina was the mother or the father of Ailment Maiden. If Katerina was formerly a male, it's possible that she's Tracy's father, but the problem is that she was already a Sequence 4 demigod during the Pale Disaster. That was at the end of the 4th epoch, and for an assassin pathway, a man will change into a woman at Sequence 7 Witch. In other words, if Katerina is Tracy's father, Tracy needs to be at least 1,300 years old. However, it's impossible for a Sequence 5 Beyonder to live so long. Even with Sequence 4 and Sequence 3 Saints aren't capable of that. There's only one answer. That is that Tracy was born Katerina. Also, I happen in the past few decades, an advancement age of more than 1,000 years. Klein nodded slightly and confirmed whether any change in expression. "She's your mom?" Tracy's expression suddenly turned odd. "No, my mother." Just as he was about to ask what was the difference between the mother, since it was establishing essentially a more formal and eloquent manner of speech, Tracy sneered and said, "My mom is another person. She used to be my father." You demonesses have messed up families, but that isn't the reason why you spread catastrophe to the world. Klein used his clown powers to control his face muscles as he continued looking at Ailment Maiden, his face impassive. Tracy, who was already in a dire situation, was now beginning to abandon herself to despair. Without waiting for Gammon Sparrow's response, she sighed and gave a self-deprecating laugh. "Maybe it would all make sense since I was born. Abnormal parents, abnormal family relationship, abnormal sect members. They sculpted me and harmed me at the age of 8. Found out that my father, who was always admired as a role model, had suddenly become a woman. He was becoming like a dainty flower by the day, becoming more and more adept at using his charms. Later on, he even found a male friend and gave birth to my younger brother. Can you imagine that kind of feeling? After I ran away from home and came to sea, I finally found a normal sense of self-recognition and a social identity after many years of hard work. Finally understood what I really wanted. Then a potion bottle turned me into a woman. A woman! After listening quietly, Klein said without changing his tone, "Your instigation skills are pretty good." Tracy turned to gate, but at the end, the only sign and smile was a completed expression. "I admit that I was trying to win your sympathy. Everyone wants to live, isn't that right? However, I didn't lie. That was my life experience." She stopped exaggerating her pain and sadness and paused. "Before you kill me, I would like to ask a question. It is a question that won't put you in a difficult spot." "What is it?" Klein looked at the demoness and asked. Tracy hesitated for a moment before finally asking, "Before you came to assassinate me the previous time, did Helen know about this?" Klein was silent for a moment before he asked. "She didn't know what would happen?" Or before he said, "She didn't know what would happen." Tracy's face suddenly glowed. "Really?" Before Gammon Sparrow could respond, she revealed an extremely complicated expression. "Before I die, can I ask another favor? If you can see her again, tell her that I feel really guilty about what happened in the past. But I don't regret it." At this point, Tracy tried to shake her head, but failed thanks to the restriction provided by the crystalline ice and invisible spiderwebs. She could only laugh at herself. "Forget it. There's no need to tell her. Let's leave it at that. You can do what you're here for." With that, Tracy closed her eyes. After a few seconds, she didn't feel the pain she expected. Instead, she heard Gammon Sparrow say in a deep voice, "Say this. No one is to disturb me." Tracy was surprised as she felt perplexed, and it showed on her face. However, she was already facing death. Such a small matter wasn't worth nitpicking about. She opened her mouth and said, "No one is to disturb me." As soon as she said that statement, the same voice echoed in the Black Death, greatly amplified. The pirates didn't have any doubts about this. It was as if they were following a specific pattern. They instinctively avoided the captain's cabin and continued their work. Since the captain said not to disturb her, they naturally wouldn't seek her out. At the same time, Tracy saw Gammon Sparrow take off his top hat and press it on his chest. He bowed slightly at her, as though he was bidding her farewell. Then she felt as though she was isolated from the entire world. There was a silence. Even the crazy adventure was gone. She had obtained the environment of not being disturbed, just as she wanted, the magnifying distortion powers of the lawyer pathway. The layer of ice on Tracy's body began to melt, but the invisible spiderwebs continued to bind her firmly, preventing her from doing anything. She couldn't even change her center of gravity. Hence, she could only stand there like a lifelike wax statue. He didn't kill me. Tracy looked ahead blankly, momentarily in disbelief. She didn't believe that Gammon Sparrow had taken action because he pitied her. The crazy adventurer had killed many pirates, and there had been a situation where he showed mercy. As for Tracy, although she believed that she wasn't the typical demoness and didn't live up to the status as a demoness, how could she not have done anything bad as a pirate? She was experienced in both the slave trade and in plundering ships. Similarly, Tracy didn't believe that Gammon Sparrow was moved by her beauty and her experiences and had ended up coveting her because his cold gaze was like he was looking at a dead person. There must be factors. A thought flashed through her mind as she made connections in matters she was more involved in. She quickly came to the conclusion, it's likely because of my blood, relationship with Mother. As for demonesses, they're all good at hexes. Once I die, Mother will immediately notice it. When she discovers that there's a problem here, she'll make preparations ahead of time, preventing Gammon Sparrow from finding his target during his subsequent actions. That's why he allowed me to live, but make it impossible for me to contact anyone else. From the looks of it, regardless of the outcome of his operation targeted at Mother, he will return to kill me. If I want to continue living, I have to succeed in saving myself before that happens. In Tracy's heart, she didn't have much of a relationship with her mother, Katerina. The demoness of unaging had lived for a long time, and most of the time, she had manipulated her youthful state by mind by dating young men. She was passionate about the occasional children that she had whenever she found it novel to have one. At the other time, she was mostly indifferent. However, as she grew older, Katerina's evolution of Tracy was that she resembled the past self more and more. Hence, she doted on her and provided more help. However, Tracy didn't want such attention. It only served to make her lose her original gender, putting her into a painful situation that she could shake off. Although I hate her and blame her, I still unknowingly rely on her. Hopefully that she can respect my opinion more. I hope that she can escape Gammon Sparrow's pursuit. Tracy once again began to struggle in the attempt to escape her bound state. On the other hand, she was trying to save herself. On the other hand, she wanted to inform her mother to be careful of Gammon Sparrow as soon as possible. Of course, Tracy found it questionable that Gammon Sparrow, who had likely advanced to Sequence 4 recently, would be able to harm her mother. She was, after all, someone who had survived since the 4th epoch and was a demoness of the title of unaging. However, she didn't only pin this belief on hope alone. This is because Gammon Sparrow had helpers such as Death Consul, who even her mother feared. Tracy finally collapsed on the ground and tried to roll towards the desk, but no matter how hard she tried, she was unable to roll her body. The person she was fighting against was none other than herself. She, who had been distorted and magnified. Above the grey fog, Klein had already taken his seat in the high-backed chair of the fool. He placed the paper stained with Vice Admiral Elman Tracy's blood on the surface of the long molten table. Following that, he conjured a pen and paper and wrote a divination statement. Vice Admiral Elman Tracy's mother Katerina's current location. Putting down the pen, he held the 2 pieces of paper, leaned back into a chair, closed his eyes, and repeated the words he had written. After repeating it 7 times, he entered a dream. He saw a tall and towering Gothic bell tower appear in the grey world. Around the bell tower, the white-robed Katerina stood in shadows of a few houses. She observed the surroundings with a heavy expression as though she was searching for something. As for the crimson moon hanging high in the sky, its position was identical to what he had seen before entering the grey fog. This meant that the demoness of white, Katerina, was still in Backland. She was in Westboro, in search of a particular target. After ending the divination and returning to the real world, Klein walked to the room outside the rental flat. There, he pondered for nearly a minute while looking at the crimson moon of the night sky. Perhaps there's still another chance for digesting the potion. He muttered silently as he ultimately rummaged through something. He took the 2 marionettes and disappeared into the shadows. In Backland, he no longer dared to use Flaming Jump, afraid that he might catch Turtle's notice. After all, it was impossible for him to always have an opportunity to ignite a will-acceptance paper crane to protect himself. This was a sign of disrespect towards the Snake of Fate, and it was easy for Dr. Aaron's family to be targeted if he kept visiting them. In the blink of an eye, Klein appeared in the black of the tall Gothic-style bell tower in his dream. He hid in the shadows once formed by the Bell of Order, a symbol of Backland. Immediately following that, he and his two marionettes split apart, each occupying different hidden spots. After doing all of this, Klein quickly turned into a rat into a marionette, allowing it to run to the edge of the range of his control. It opened his mouth and softly chanted an honorific name. The greater god of war, the symbol of iron and blood, the ruler of chaos and strife, demoness of white, Katarina is in this area. Since Klein was fulfilling his agreement to the Red Angel evil spirit, he also hoped that the high-level creature would step into the trap and might possibly be for him. At the same time, he had some doubts that Sauron Enhorn Medici's true intentions. He had no idea of urgently getting help from the Church of Evernight or Queen Mystic. He planned on watching from the sidelines and confirm the situation, lest he implicate others unto springing a trap. Just as his prayer ended, the gray rat suddenly twitched and fell quietly beside the rubbish bins. It had already lost its life and was no longer Klein's marionette. This was a way to prevent himself from being marked by the Red Angel evil spirit. As for him, after giving up on the rat's marionette, he immediately left the area where the bells and orders located in Conus and Enium had also made the winner pray to the god of a few kilometers away. After the prayer, the two of them continued the retreat, widening their distance. Then Klein hid in the storage room in particular houses, took out 4 steps counterclockwise, and went above the great fog to sit in the position of the fool. He then beckoned the sea god scepter, and with the help of the prayer of light, the winner, he expanded the scope and observed the targeted area. At the same time, with his other hands, he held the piece of paper that was stained with Vice Admiral Aylmer Tracy's blood. With a medium like this, the general scope, it didn't take long under his true vision before he found the hidden demoness of White Katarina. The black-haired, blue-eyed woman was dressed in a pure white robe. She looked like a weightless feather, and she was gently drifting across the streets and alleys. Even if the patrolling policemen looked into the right direction, they were unable to detect her presence. If it wasn't for the gray fog's help, Klein could only use spirit body threads and see through the invisibility of to a certain extent. Taking a deep breath, he patiently waited for the Red Angel evil spirit to appear. He also observed Katarina waiting to know what she was looking for. He suspected that the demoness of white was targeting Trissy Cheek. Seconds changed into minutes, and the crimson moon gradually tidled to the side, having wandered around the Bell of Order, and while without finding anything, Katarina revealed a slightly frustrated and disappointed expression. She looked as though she was about to leave the area at any time, and the Red Angel evil spirit never appeared. This, Sauron Enhorn Medici was lying to me. He really didn't have the demoness of white as his goal. No, that's not necessarily the case. If that happened, then his condition would be meaningless. The Red Angel's evil spirit has actually arrived in the scene, but then has chosen not to immediately take action like me. He is waiting for the battle between Katarina and me in the company to reach its most intense state before suddenly appearing to reap the greatest benefits. Klein's thoughts wandered as he came up with a guess. He suspected that the Red Angel evil spirit was a cautious, careful, and staid as he was. He hoped to be a fisherman pulling in the net and not pulling in the net and not pulling in a fisherman pulling in the net and not the net. This was really troublesome. Next, it depended on who was more patient. Klein muttered silently as he continued to observe the situation around the Bell of Order through the prayer of light. Tick, tick, tick. The second hand was beating at the same place in the quiet night. Demoness of White Katarina's expression turned increasingly gloomy. Suddenly, she cast her gaze to the glass window of a building. The dim night was like a mirror reflecting the things in front of them. Katarina's beautiful blue eyes sparkled slightly as she surfaced the mirror, instantly turning dark, as though there was countless objects and layers of hidden space hidden within. The glass window seemed to become a passageway to an alternate world, and a thought together with the various beyonder powers that Demoness Trissy had showcased. He suspected that Katarina was about to use her mirror world to leave this place and end her hunt tonight. How can the Red Angel evil spirit still endure this? Klein tensed up as he instinctively wanted to pull down the sea god scepter and return to the real world. He wanted to act against the demoness of white and prevent her from leaving. As this thought flashed through his mind, he ultimately didn't move. He felt that he could still wait a little longer, because even if Katarina left the surrounding area of the Bell of Order, he could still locate her again as long as she didn't discover that something had happened to her daughter. When the time came, he could fish, summon a Rhodes, and ask about the target's large abilities and items. Then he could either seek the help of Queen Mystic Bernadette of the Church of Evernight to borrow a Grade 1 sealed artifact. He could then make the scales of the victory tip towards him before taking action. I deliberately didn't hide my operation this time. If I were to borrow a sealed artifact in the Archbishop's assessment, means that the goddess's true attitude towards King George III is she doesn't like the king becoming the Black Emperor, but she can only accept it slightly. If someone is willing to disturb the ritual, she is willing to provide some help. Klein calmly Klein calmed his slightly anxious feelings towards the observation and became more relaxed. At that moment, Demoness of White Katerina's expression turned to normal. She floated to the glass window and entered without any corporal form. The layer of illusory words within the mirror converged as though they were constantly moving away. At this moment, using his true vision to observe the area underneath, Klein seemed to hear a shrill female scream. This cry seemed to come from another world. It contained extreme fear and disbelief. None of the residents in the surrounding areas were jolted awake. No one heard anything. That was Katerina's scream. What exactly happened to her? Klein's gaze froze as he thought of something. The Red Angel Evil Spirit is also an evil spirit, and is also capable of using Mirror Blink, thus using this medium. In other words, he was no stranger to the mirror world. Could it be that Sauron Enhorn Medici had been hiding in the mirror all this time, waiting for Demoness the White to throw herself into a trap? As his pupils dilated, the darkness and gloominess of the glass window disappeared. The mirror had lost its uniqueness characteristic and returned to its normal state. A few seconds later, the bottom of the glass window slowly bled, forming a liquid and slid down. In this area, the liquid passed the surrounding grayish-white tint spread, covering its original pale yellow color. It was like a newly embedded stone. Drip, drip, drip. The drops of liquid latched onto the ground, dyeing it bright red like blood, beautiful like flowers. Upon seeing the scene, the muscles on Klein's face twitched slightly before he forced himself to use clown powers to control his expression. This ending was really unexpected. The powerful and senior Sequence 3 saint, who had once lived for more than 1,000 years, was unable to put up any resistance in front of the Red Angel Evil Spirit's trap. There was only one silence left. As for Klein himself, even if he counted the 2 marionettes and the sealed artifact he possessed, he was still a little weaker than compared to Katerina's strength. He needed to make up for this gap through prior preparations. This also meant that if he were to face Red Angel's evil spirit, he would probably not end up any better. He would similarly be powerless and puny, slowly sinking into the torrent of this followed. Is this what the former King of Angels is? Even though his strength is yet to recover to its peak state, it still leaves one of such despair. Seeing the blood seeping out from the glass windows gradually lessen, he took a deep breath and returned to the real world. Following that, he and Winter Enu exchanged positions as he teleported to the glass window. When Bizarro sorcerers switched positions, they could only choose 2, swapping their bodies and external objects. However, it was impossible to be too precise at his current level, so Klein was unable to leave behind whatever he wanted. He could only choose and leave everything, or not leave anything behind. And you, who wore Gammon Sparrow's appearance, said at the glass window in a deep voice the moment he materialized in front of it, "I have already fulfilled my promise." A figure suddenly appeared to the glass window. He was wearing a long black robe and red stripes. He casually wore a hood, revealing a soft outline. His skin was brown, and he had a pale face. He was the gatekeeper who was possessed by Sauron Enhorn Medici. Well done. The young man walked down from the window and said with a smile. Upon hearing this, Klein took out something from his pocket. The corner of his mouth curled up as he happily replied, "You did well, too." As he spoke, he blew No, because did I just read what I just think I read? Did I just read what I... He spoke, he blew at the monocle in his hand and wore it on his left eye. This motherfucker. Sauron Enhorn Medici's smile froze. Yeah, same. Same. No, because I always get so confused. I'm like... Is anybody really anybody, or are they just all Amon? Is everybody just all Amon? Okay. I'm ready. Oh my god. Crazy. Truly crazy. No, literally. No, stop. Because I'm like... I actually don't trust that anybody's not. Sometimes I'm like, am I Amon? Oh my god. For a moment, the cold night became abnormally scorching hot, as though invisible lava was surging within it. However, everything quickly returned to normal. The Red Angel's evil spirit sized up Klein with a smile as if nothing had happened. I'll say it again, you have a talent in being a provoker. Back when... I got all excited for nothing. I'll say, back when Zeratul digested the bizarre sorcerer potion, even he didn't dare to pretend to be Amon in front of me. There wasn't a hint of danger in his tone. No! Because here's the thing, I get a little scared, but then I get a little excited. Whatever. I didn't want to hang out with him anyway. There wasn't a hint of anger in his tone. He didn't mention why Zeratul didn't dare to do so, but his gaze swept across. Klein, it was as if he hadn't fallen deep inside a glacier, his body freezing in the process. This is how his actual body... No. Because here's the thing. This is, like, something Amon would do. Like, this isn't... That's not crazy to think that he would just show up. Or, like... Not him, but, you know. This was how his actual body felt. Even though he was separated by a marionette, the back of his neck and back still had goosebumps. Without needing Sauron and Horn Medici to say anything else, Klein understood the hidden meaning behind his words. Anyone who dared to use such a method to scare him would suffer the punishment of steel and blood on the spot. Looking at the Red Angel evil spirit in front of him, who had converged aura but was given off the feeling of extremely high level of superiority, Klein couldn't help but inwardly mutter, if it wasn't for the fact that the bizarre sorcerer potion had been digested to a certain extent, I would have thought that your willpower was as strong as steel and your strength had returned to a level of the sequence 1, and now I can barely confirm that. Your calm demeanor, you're hiding a strong fear towards Amon, but also, who isn't? I love how Klein's like, oh my god, you're so scared of him. So are you. So is everybody else. I don't know a single character who's not terrified of Amon and Adam. Everybody is. Nobody wants to deal with them. Besides, I was already mentally prepared to lose a marionette in order to quickly digest the potion. I had to take the risk. If Donitz... let's just say, if I can't get Cameron Sparrow in a dark alley, there is a second best. He could probably quickly... Sorry, I'll stop. Digest the Provoker potion, even if he had drunk 4 or 5 bottles. Without further agitating the Red Angel evil spirit, Klein smiled and took off the monocle. Back in the Solomon Empire, Zeratul had already become an angel. An angel, how would he need to digest the bizarre sorcerer potion? I'm talking about a young Zeratul. Sauron and Horn Medici said casually. This is consistent with the description from the grandpa in Leonard's body. Klein nodded indiscernibly and focused on the main topic at hand. You already finished off the Demoness of White? What do you think? The Red Angel evil spirit laughed and said, also, one must be polite. Since Katarina calls herself the Saintess of White, then you shouldn't call her the Demoness anymore. Polite. A hunter emphasizing manners with me. At that instant, the corner of Klein's mouth twitched, expressing the ludicrousness in the matter, but he ultimately held back. From the look of it, provoking isn't limited to ridicule and cursing others. Donitz, who only knows how to curse using one word, is disgrace to hunters. As he thought, Klein said, I've already fulfilled my promise. I think you don't mind giving me a small reward. Reward? The Red Angel evil spirit scoffed and asked. Klein ignored his attitude and continued. I wish to communicate with the Demoness of White. I want to ask her something. Just this request? The Red Angel evil spirit asked in amusement. Klein nodded. That's right. No problem. Sauron and Horn Medici raised his right hand and grabbed at his glabella. From there, a blurry figure was pulled out. It was none other than Saintess of White Katarina, whose facial expression was filled with horror. Can we have a private conversation? Seeing this, Klein looked around. The Red Angel evil spirit immediately laughed and said, do you need a room where the two of you can be together? Think about it. With a brain of yours, even if you want to hide the questions you would like to raise from me, I can still find out through Katarina's spirit. That is, of course, unless you don't plan on returning her to me, or are you a little boy who needs things to follow a ritual? Klein made a marionette reply with a deadpan expression. I have a way to make her forget my question. This was both a truth and a lie. The truth was that he could use Havan Rambus's manipulator beyond characteristic to complete the job. However, it was relatively difficult and the chance of failure was very high. Furthermore, the negative effects weren't minor. The reason why he lied was because he had no intention of doing so. This would expose many important matters. He only had one purpose in saying this, to make the Red Angel evil spirits suspect that the answers obtained weren't the truth, that there were hidden parts beneath the surface. From that, he would ignore the value of the answer obtained on the surface. This worked wonders on people who were highly suspicious. Of course, there was no hope of success. After all, the entity opposite him was a red angel who mastered of conspiracies. Not bad. After Sauron Enhorn, Medici heard Klein's reply. His body suddenly vanished, projecting onto a glass window. Klein glanced at the blood that had already congealed on the gray stones, feeling somewhat wishful that he had brought a somewhat muddled-headed demoness of white Katerina far away from the grass and into the dark alley. He then took out candles, essential oils, and herbal powders. He set up an altar and prayed to the Evernight goddess, hoping that he could ritualistically magic to complete the mediumship. This was a skill he had mastered when he was a Nighthawk. So the ritual was completed. An immense and terrifying power descent from an indescribable height, causing the surroundings to become unusually quiet. Klein's eyes instantly darkened, as though it was like the dark night was compressed. He then saw more things around Katerina's spirit, flickering light and blurry mind storms. He easily passed through those obstacles and faced the demoness of White's body and heart and mind. His cooperation between the demoness sect and George III come to an end. Without being careless, Klein began from a less sensitive question, observed Katerina's condition. The dazed and confused look on Katerina's face faded a little as she nodded with a pure smile. Yes. Then why are you still in Backland? Klein asked further. Katerina replied solemnly. I'm in pursuit of Trissy. She took an important sealed artifact from us. What's a sealed artifact? Klein suddenly recalled the sapphire ring the demoness Trissy had once worn on her hand. It was intrinsically made. Demoness of White, Katerina said with a pious expression. It has something to do with the awakening of the primordial. Apart from this high level at grade 0, it doesn't have any special abilities. Indeed, it has to do with the primordial demoness. You people even changed Trissy's name to Trissy Cheek. Klein didn't reveal that he knew the true name of the primordial demoness. Instead, he asked, Do you know where the other 8 mausoleums of George III are? Katerina frowned slightly and answered in a manner meant to garner sympathy. They're separately located in the southwest suburbs of Backland, Awa Country, Eastchester County. The Demoness of White first gave a simple account of the locations of the 8 mausoleums before introducing their specific locations and situations in detail. The 8 mausoleums have already been repaired. They temporarily deactivated the teleportation tunnel. Even if they have the corresponding charms, there's no way to open them again. It's almost impossible to find them directly outside this world. Other than Prince Grove, Duchess Georgina, and the 2 angels of the royal family, and George III, no one else can enter. Well, some of those places were places where Conus Kilgore often went hunting, so it matches my guess. This means that the Demoness of White isn't lying. I'll make confirmation above the Grey Fog later. If this is really the case, it would be quite troublesome. With the current situation, be it Prince Grove or Duchess Georgina, they would definitely be in a sight of the angels. The biggest hurdle in entering the ruins, once entry is gained, what followed would be dangerous. War has already broken out, and there's a need to fight against the Phaeacians. Demigods are at limited resources, so there's no way George III can have every ruin be guarded by a saint. With the option of the angel to provide reinforcements, as Klein's thoughts raced, he first posed a question. The royal family has 2 angels. In fact, that's not the case. It's very likely that George III is also one, Katerina replied hoarsely. One of those 2 angels is the founder of the Lone Kingdom, Protector William I, who has survived since the 4th epoch. He is a Spectator 1, Hand of Order of the Arbiter Pathway, while the other is former Duke of Southville, Dlink Augustus. He is a Sequence 2 Balancer. As for how many grade 0 sealed artifacts the royal family has, I'm not sure. The founder of the 10-pound note is still alive. I have a feeling the history is seeped into reality again. After some thought, he nodded and asked. I know, I read it and I said it very differently. For our Conqueror beyond a characteristic, it's already in our hands. Katerina's expression became a little excited. Conqueror was the name of the Red Priest Pathway, Sequence 1 potion. Then, will it belong to the primordial demoness or belong to the upper echelons of your sect? Klein asked thoughtfully, Who are the higher-ups of your sect? It will be sacrificed to the primordial. However, we have to find the sealed artifact that Trissy took away first. Currently, it has been kept by the Saintess of Black. All the higher-ups of our sect have colors to their code names. Katarina answered truthfully. After understanding more details, Klein terminated the spirit channeling, cleaned up the altar, and allowed the Demoness of White spirit to return to the glass window from before. As for herself, her body suddenly turned transparent. With the help of teleportation, he disappeared from the region, rendezvousing with his actual body and other marionettes. After watching Gammon Sparrow leave, the gloominess and confusion on Katarina's face suddenly vanished as her expression became extremely astute. She then entered the glass window, which had turned dark again. A few seconds later, Sauron, Enhorn, Medici, and the Demoness of White Katarina walked out of the mirror together. The latter's figure was clear and filled with flesh. She showed no signs of death. Bro. Crazy. Dude, that's actually crazy. Because here's the thing, I knew they were doing something. I knew they were doing something, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was, and I was like, okay, we'll see. I'll fix it. Just go back into the... There you go. Crazy. I know, I just rejoined. So he was just... So it was just... They were... Cool. Are you saying that he was asking about other 8 secret mausoleums of George III? The power of the spirit channeling came from Evernight. The Red Angel evil spirit stroked his chin and turned to Katarina. The Demoness of White nodded slightly and said, "That's right." The Red Angel evil spirit immediately laughed. So he doesn't want George III to become Black Emperor. Katarina's eyes darted around as she revealed a smile. But it's impossible to succeed. No matter how fast he advances or how much help he receives, there's no way he can resist the combined force of the royal family, the military, and the organization. No, if it's just the Antigonus family, with his level and strength, he wouldn't be able to do anything unless Evernight personally descends. What an interesting thing to say. Having said that, the Demoness of White asked in seemingly casual manner, "I'm very puzzled. Why didn't you kill me directly?" After grasping the absolute advantage over me, the Red Angel evil spirit glanced at her and the corners of his mouth slowly curled up. "Do you think you have a right to be my true target?" I love him. I love him so much. Oh, I don't want him to die. I truly love him so much. Upon hearing the Red Angel evil spirit reply, no, because I love Medici. Like, truly love him. Yeah. Upon hearing the Red Angel's evil spirit reply, Demoness of White Katarina's expression instantly froze. Unable to contain her anger, Sauron, Enhorn, Medici laughed and continued. "You must have become a demigod at the end of the 4th epoch. It's been more than 1,000 years, but you haven't become an angel. Don't you feel inferior?" Just has to. He just has to. He can't control himself. As for that fellow just now, he has had to rely on Azog Eggers to face you head-on in the beginning. He was weak as a chick that had just hatched, but now, in less than a year, he has already advanced sequence 4 and obtained godhood. He has the ability to match your strength. Don't you have any thoughts about this? Didn't you think that the past 1,000 years were a waste? Even a dog might open the gates to angelhood after living for more than 1,000 years. I mean, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. I know what you're thinking. You're very jealous. Oh, he keeps going. he's still going. On the other hand, you also have a twisted desire. You want to provoke yourself by sleeping with him. You demonesses are really laughable. On the one hand, you insist that you were originally men, so you prevent yourselves from losing yourselves, thus resulting in you losing control. On the other hand, you have to showcase the charm of a woman and try to hand it extreme pleasure and intense love. But we hunters have no such problem. Regardless of what gender we are in the beginning, we all need to do in the future is war, war, war. Primordial really is a twisted fellow. Letting a pure woman take the path of demoness would be so much better. However, generation after generation you pass that damage down. And for what? Isn't the main goal merely to seek revenge on fate? At that point, here's the thing. At that point, I'm slitting my own neck. I actually don't need Medici to be doing anything. I'm doing it to myself. Truly killed her with words. Damn. Every word the Red Angel's spirit was like an arrow that stabbed into the heart of the Demoness of White. It made her beautiful and exquisite face twitch, and her smooth, raven black long hair seemed to grow thicker. Sour and Edward Medici glanced at Katerina and immediately chortled. Don't tell me you're losing control because of my provocations. What a nostalgic feeling. Oh, he keeps going! The Red Angel evil spirit paused for a moment before saying, no. He ends the conversation. You can leave now. If there's anything, then remember to recite my honorific name. Of course, I'll come to you directly if I have to. No, stop. Because that's so disrespectful. He's like, yeah, just pray to me. You can just get on your knees next time you need me. Demoness of White, Katerina's expression returned to normal. She frowned slightly and asked in disbelief, you're letting me leave just like that? The Red Angel's evil spirit chuckled. Why? Fuck, no, I can't. Every time he speaks. Why do you want to sleep with me? It's not impossible if the timing is right, but there's something very important that needs to be done right now. Don't worry, since you've already recited my honorific name and given me a drop of your blood, you'll be under my watch, and you can be affected by me at any moment. Have you already forgotten the difference between an angel and a saint? Don't you know how powerful a real high-level figure is? Unless you directly pray to the primordial and receive a response, otherwise you'll never be able to free yourself from my gaze. Well, in normal circumstances, an angel can do such a thing, but that's only limited to the situation if you only chant my honorific name. If you don't believe me, I'll let you seek the help of an angel. Demoness of White, Katerina listened to the gloomy expression before finally smiling. I'll keep your teachings in mind, Lord Medici. Sour and Edward Medici's eyebrows twitched. You don't seem so compliant. I can even imagine how you were when you faced Gammon Sparrow, but I don't care. I forgot to tell you, it's best if you immediately confirm the condition of your bloodline descendants. Don't you find it suspicious that Gammon Sparrow managed to find you so easily? Katerina's face suddenly turned pale, but then it grew serious. She slowly nodded and said, I understand. With that said, she immediately retreated and entered the glass window again. It was unknown where she was headed for the illusion's stacked mirror world. Damn. Truly don't think I would ever I would want him to be my best friend and we could clock bitches together. He's just too quick. Like he's truly just too quick. I need to see him like in a podcast. So bad. Like going up against like a red pill man on like a podcast. It'd be so good. My goal is to hit chapter 1120 or 25. No, I'd be so scared to meet him. He would look you up and down. If you met this man in real life, he'd give you one glance up and down, clock your entire shit, and you'd leave crying within like 5 seconds. And that would be that. No, but here's the thing. I don't see it. I don't think he would be... He'd be toxic, but in like a good way. You know? Like, I can't see him being Andrew Tate. Absolutely not. I would put him in a room with Andrew Tate and have him clock Andrew Tate's shit. To the point that, like make the grown man cry. You know? What an excellent actress. She made it seem like she wasn't good at controlling her expression, showing her resilience and lack of intelligence as though it was easy for her ulterior motives to be discovered. That's right. That way, there's a high chance that we wouldn't belittle her and let our guard down against her. The Red Angel's evil spirit right cheek also cracked open in a hideous manner. Demonesses are indeed very cunning. However, I've never underestimated my prey. The Red Angel evil spirit used his normal's mouth to say, "She wants me to desensitize me and make me belittle her. But it's impossible." The bloody gash on his left cheek opened and closed and replied, "Then why were you captured by a listed tutor?" "That's because of the two of you." The personality that belonged to Medici pouted and said, "It has nothing to do with belittlement or desensitization." The blood-colored crack on his right snorted and said, "How does it feel like becoming someone else's prey? The mighty god of war, the Red Angel beside the creator." Not bad. Medici's expression darkened a little. His words seemed to contain some self-complacency. The personality that belonged to Sauron said with the left cheek, "You really like to buff in order to achieve your goals. Back then, Alisto and company managed to see through your lies, which was why they managed to seize your opportunity. And just now, you were bluffing Katarina. You're only capable of releasing your aura, relying on traps and surprise attacks to bring about certain amounts of damage. There was no way you could quickly finish her off, but you pretended that you had returned to a Sequence 1 state, tricking her into reciting her honorific name and handing over her blood." Medici pouted again and said, "A bluff is also a normal play style in poker. That effect is pretty good, isn't it?" At this point, the Red Angel chuckled and said, "Furthermore, it's not a bluff. What I'm most fond of is to mix in the truth or two every few bluffs, allowing me to wait for fellows who think that they've seen through my disguise and step into a trap. It's just like the mistakes you two idiots made back then. But you were the first to die." The two sides in the Red Angel's evil space cracked at the same time. Without any hesitation, Medici said, "That means I'm the strongest, worthy of having the most attention." With that said, the three personalities of the Red Angel evil spirit fell silent for the same time. After a few seconds, the blood-colored crack that represented Endhorn opened and closed. Gammon Sparrow's connection with Evernight is tighter than I imagined. He should have noticed Katarina's true state by now. Medici chuckled and said, "That's all right. This is something she is tactically allowed in the first place. Back when the Great Smog of Backland happened, the ones who's participated in the operation are all gone. Only the demoness named Trissi is still alive. Isn't that enough to explain something?" Sauron and Endhorn didn't speak further as they allowed the bloody crack on the cheek to wiggle and heal. The Red Angel evil spirit that reflected himself in the glass window disappeared from the area around the Bell of Order. Above the grayish-white fog inside the ancient palace, looking at the spinning topaz pendant in his hand, Klein nodded indiscernibly. I love him. He had already used his spirit dowsing to confirm Katarina's answer, and he came up with a concrete conclusion. Right on the heels of that, he began his dream divination based on what he knew of the 8 secret mausoleums. He saw the corresponding areas and their blurry states. This made him understand that the entity was impossible via normal methods. Even the process of praying without interference had difficulties in locating the interior of the mausoleum. This is very troublesome. Also, when I was channeling the Demoness of White girl's spirit, it was quite different from the time when I did for Conus Kilgore or Haven Rambus. She had too many expressions, and her answer was more provocative. Is this something special about Demoness, or is it due to the other factions? With the thought, he beckoned with his hand to draw out a piece of paper that was stained with Vice Admiral Elmet's blood. He wrote down the corresponding sentence and made a dream divination to search for his target. In the blurry world, Klein saw Tracy, who had escaped from her spiderwebs, looking out the window. There was a dark and illusory storm around there, making it impossible for him to know where it was. Tracy has escaped. Doesn't she look sad? She only feels a certain amount of anger and confusion. Her relationship with the Demoness of White is so terrible. Or could it be, just as he was feeling puzzled, he saw the black flame suddenly ignite and melt away dreams away? He opened his eyes and confirmed that he could no longer use the blood in his hands to divine location of Vice Admiral Ailment, Tracy. This meant that the demigod's powerhouse had used mysticism technique to sever the connection between the two. Could it be that the Demoness of White isn't dead yet? Right. When the Red Angel evil spirit answered me, He was using rhetorical questions. He didn't admit to it at all. It was channeling the spirit of a living person. Klein was instantly enlightened as he hurriedly made another divination. Finally, he confirmed that the demoness of white really was alive. You know what? At least Klein's smart. He got that going for him. Indeed, the Red Angel Evil Spirit's true target isn't the Demoness of White. Also combined with the feedback from progression from my potion digestion, is it right for me to say that the Red Angel Evil Spirit is weaker than I imagine? He hasn't even recovered to the level sequence 2, and he was unable to quickly finish off the Demoness of White. He could only rely on the other means to subdue her. After pondering for a few moments, Klein realized he couldn't come to the conclusion. He quickly remained his thoughts and stopped considering the problem. This was because he had already obtained the information he needed from the Demoness of White Katarina. Klein put down the piece of paper that was stained with Vice Admiral Elman's blood and suddenly chuckled, severing the connection between the blood and the body, preventing powers of divination prophecy from using it as Medici, or as a medium. I wonder if it'll work when rubbing it on the surface of Grozel's travels. After looking at the piece of paper for a few seconds, Klein temporarily gave up on the idea of testing it because there was no need for it. His focus quickly shifted to the other 8 mausoleums of King George III. Ordinary lines of thought should work. The things that I could come up with are definitely things that the Angel of Saints under King George III configured as well. If it wasn't for the fact that the gods have already tactically allowed this matter, exposing this matter by printing it on flyers might have been effective. Teleportation Nexus, the Tudor ruins, this. As he thought about it, his thought suddenly came to his mind. He had an idea. In the magnificent palace above the grey fog, Klein stretched out his right hand and tapped the edge of the long molten table as he muttered silently. A large family clans of the Tudor dynasty are Amon, Abraham, Antigonus, Jacob, and Tamara. Couldn't read it. I'm gonna probably read, because here's the thing. I said this at the beginning of the stream. I don't know why. I was thinking that today was Thursday. And I had my whole week. I was always a day behind the entire week. So what the plan is now is I'm going to read up until I'll read up to chapter 1120. I'm going to see what time it is, and we might be able to get to chapter 1125. Tomorrow, because Kami, I think you said it was just the last 10 chapters. The last 10 chapters that need to be read together. So then what I'm going to do tomorrow is read up until chapter 1140. And then on Monday, I'm going to read the last 10 chapters. Okay. Maybe I'll do 35, and then I'll read the last 15 chapters, or whatever it will be. Last 10, last 15, however many it'll be. So that's the plan. So I'll do up to 1120, maybe 25, and then I'll do however many I have to do tomorrow, and then leave the last 15 chapters for Monday, and then finish it. He grasped the apprentice pathway when it comes to teleportation, where am I reading? Pause, learn to read, become Blood Emperor were the kings of angels Adam, Amon, and Abraham. Can it be inferred that during the time of the Tudor Trunzen United Emperor, there were consuls Amon and Abraham standing beside Alista? If that's the case, Blood Emperor Alista Tudor didn't have plans on switching paths in the beginning. When he secretly constructed the mausoleums, he likely would have sought the help of one or more of the following Amon, Abraham, and Antigonus. As for Bethel Abraham, he's Mr. Door and he grasps the apprentice pathway. When it comes to teleportation, even the true deity might not be as good as him. So could the teleportation nexus in the Tudor ruins be set up by Bethel Abraham? There's a high chance of that. Yes, only important figures like Mr. Dorr can enter and exit the secret ruins of such a level. Even my divination above the Grey Fog is unable to pinpoint its location. Likewise, it's difficult for an angel who wields concealment to enter it directly. Amidst his thoughts, Klein was learning more and more towards his own guess being closer to that of reality. I wonder if Mr. Dorr left behind any relevant information to provide accurate coordinates or methods of entry. This would require Miss Magician to ask her teacher again. I really hope that Miss Magician can become a traveler as soon as possible. That way, she would need to only rely on writing letters to contact her teacher. She could teleport over directly. Yes, she can do it now, but the acting of being able to record so many things traveling spells would scare her teacher and arouse suspicion. It's really troublesome. If there are no records left behind by the Abraham family, I have to attempt to converse with Mr. Dorr. Not only is this troublesome, but it also is dangerous. Most importantly, Miss Magician isn't even sequence 5 yet. She hasn't been able to clearly hear it, much less respond to Mr. Dorr. It's impossible for me to turn her into a marionette or descend onto her body. Early on, Klein had seriously considered communicating with Mr. Dorr through Miss Magician when he first pulled her above the Grey Fog. Later, after he came to learn more, he grew increasingly apprehensive about the idea. He didn't dare take the risk. Furthermore, the level he was at now lacked the measurements that spelled sufficiency and security. As his thoughts churned, he suddenly sighed and said a word: patience. At sea on the island of a relatively high pirate activity, Forbes raised her glass and took a sip of the transparent and colorless liquid in anticipation. Her face scrunched up as she had tasted something hard to swallow. Isn't this Lanty-proof? Too inferior? Why are they having so much fun drinking this? Forbes put down her cup, raised her right hand, and feigned her mouth. She softly muttered, apart from the alcohol content, it doesn't have any other strengths. Oh, right. It's also cheap. After drinking a mouthful of cold water from another cup, Forrest picked up the fountain pen and wrote in a rather poor quality notebook. The pirates here are only in pursuit of strong liquor while keeping an eye to the price. To them, being drunk is more important than anything else. 3 pirate friends that I know have told me that this port city was built by them. At first, they only docked their ships here to hide the loot and settle their families. Later on, the bankrupt adventurers and tack figures came to this place and settled down. They also plowed the lands on the island and built houses. Finally, an entrepot market was formed, and the merchants at sea swarmed over like sharks smelling blood. At this point, Forrest looked over at 3 pirates curled up in the corner. Do you have anything else to say? The 3 burly pirates trembled at the same time and said with a mouthful expression, No, really, we have nothing. I have to say that it feels pretty good to intimidate Mr. World's attitude when it comes to dealing with pirates. Forrest sighed and shook her head. She retracted her gaze and continued writing. There's a liberal moon here. If the women are interested in any man, they can, like the men, offer a price. Similarly, it works when the man catches the eye of another man, or when a woman catches the eye of another woman. According to my 3 pirate friends, due to the long periods of regression and boredom while drifting on at sea, it's inevitable for some people to experiment with certain forbidden taboos in this aspect. They've been very honest and even described their experiences. Love it. I love it! Pirates really know what's up. In addition, they informed me of things that they never dared believe. Pirates actually advocate the concept of democracy and justice. This has completely overturned my understanding, but on careful thoughts, it doesn't seem difficult to understand. At least they didn't say that they were pursuing justice. Also, high unknown. The explanation from my 3 pirate friends is that when the pirate person with the weapons doesn't have absolute... Okay. Yes. Some pirates. But these one that she's talking to, I don't know. Don't sound too bad. They're allies. We love. They believe in democracy. They are building structures in towns. They believe in cheap and excessive amounts of booze. Those other ones from before, fuck those guys. But these guys, I don't know. Pretty chill. It's always a case of there being tyranny from the majority of the pirate ships. No, I never said that. The explanation of my 3 pirate friends is that when a person with his weapons doesn't have absolute overwhelming strength, it's always a case of there being tyranny from the majority of the pirate ships. Furthermore, a large ship requires a lot of people to run it. With these factors are combined, it makes a pirate crew very particular about democracy. There will always be a captain who will be voted in by his crew now and then be banished or even killed. I believe that if a captain possesses absolute strength, the pirate crew would definitely develop other styles of governance. Wish we could do that with some of our leaders. Who said that? At this point, Forrest looked out the window again and saw that under the blue sky and the white clouds, building made of wood and rocks formed in the dense circle around the market from time to time. She could see a few children in tattered clothes skipping past. Upon hearing that extremely lively commotion, Forrest wrote again. There's no urban planning here at all. Everyone casually builds their house and expands their borders. As a result, many roads only allow one person for walking through. There's no sunlight at all. My first reaction is that once the fire breaks out, the outcome will be extremely terrifying. Backlund once had a similar tragedy. However, my 3 pirate friends told me that this isn't something worth worrying about because it's humid and often rains here. People with special powers never keep it under wraps. This place is still under the influence of war, although it's chaotic. It gives people a sense of tranquility. Also, what they're most afraid of isn't the king of the 5 Seas Nast or all sorts I read his name or all sorts of horrifying legends, but rather the crazy adventurer Gairman Sparrow. Every pirate is he's literally the bedtime story. Like, you know when you're a kid and your mom's like, you have to be good or the boogeyman's gonna come and get you? It's just Gairman Sparrow for all the pirates. The crazy adventurer Gairman Sparrow. Every pirate is warned by their peers not to drink too late into the night. Oh my god. They should take a walk in the middle of the night or use small alleys. That's because they shouldn't take a walk in the middle of the night or use small alleys. That's because it might lead to them going missing, and the murderer is rumored to be that gentleman. Love it. Love it. Is this a form of hunting? As she wrote, Forrest's expression gradually turned solemn. She hurriedly pulled out another stack of papers and added to the content. There's a unique coldness that wafts through the hospital at night, and the darkness outside the windows is much thicker than other places. No one knows why that young lady who lives in the single ward gets her family members to bring her mushrooms and weeds. Come again? No one knows where these things end up in sort. There were no signs of any fires in the ward, and there was no abandoned junk side. That makes the nurse aspect impatient, secretly eating mushrooms and weeds. Standing in front of the mountain of Afternoon Town, which was divided into 3 regions at the top, middle, and bottom, and the camp set up by the City of Silver, Derek Bird claps his hands and placed them in front of his mouth, softly chanting, "The fool that doesn't belong to this era." After piously chanting, he stood up and picked up the ancient bronze cross that was covered in sharp spikes, walking towards the bonfire outside. As the unshadowed crucifix couldn't coexist with other mystical items, his giant hammer named Thunder's God Roar could only be temporarily left to Han and Joshua to carry with them. As the City of Silver expedition team gathered, Klein, who was in Backlund, had already arrived above the gray fog. He picked up the Sea God Scepter, and with the help of one of the Crimson Star begrudging and contracting, he saw the situation in Afternoon Town, and he expanded his vision towards the Giant King's court. If he didn't use the prayer light and Sea God Scepter, Klein was unable to expand the field of vision, relying on only crimson stars. As his gaze moved, a beautiful but deep dusk gradually appeared in his eyes. In the area where dusk was frozen, there was countless places, countless towers, and many majestic city walls. They were magnificent and opulent, resembling a miracle found in myths and legends. Furthermore, they were frozen in time. The Giant King's court. As he tried to zoom in on the vision, Klein realized that he was unable to see the exact situation beneath the dusk. As expected of the divine kingdom of the ancient gods, and it's not the kind that has been abandoned or hidden, it's no wonder that the King of Angels chose this place for his secret gathering. I hope the little son's prayers after entering the Giant King's court will help me see it more clearly. Klein noted thoughtfully. At the same time, he focused his portions on this attention on Shepherd Elder Lovia. I don't know if I trust this bitch. I don't know if I trust. He discovered that this lady had an illusory silver armor covering her entire body. This should be an evil spirit she grazed. I haven't seen any effects from the true creator yet. Klein slowly let out a breath and patiently waited for the subsequent developments. After a while, under the lead of Chief Colin Iliad. I also don't know if I trust Colin Iliad. I don't know if I trust Lovia or Colin Iliad. Might be a hot take. I might come to regret this, like when I didn't trust Captain Dunn. But I don't. I feel like I don't trust her. Truly don't. She kind of sus. She kind of giving me a vibe. Okay, I won't. Okay, Colin Iliad, maybe he's a good guy. Maybe he's a good guy. I don't know. I was like just feeling it out where I'm like, we'll see. But I don't trust Lovia at all. I think she's up to something. I think she's gonna do something. Something's gonna happen. This should be evil spirit she grays. I haven't seen any effects from the true creator yet. Klein slowly let her breath and patiently waited for the subsequent developments. After a while, he, under the lead of Chief Colin Iliad, the 9-man expedition team, including Derek Bird, left the afternoon town camp. They followed the stairs paved with greystone and walked towards the peak of the mountains. They were at least sequence 6 beyonders. Most of them belonged to the warrior path. They moved at relatively fast speed, clearing the few waves of monsters that were mainly rotten giants. Finally, they arrived at the region shrouded by dusk. They were shocked by the grand and epic building, and no one spoke for a short period of time. This was also the first time they had encountered the place where there was no flashings of lightning. No, because it's not... Okay, here's the thing. It's not that I do, it's that I could, you know? I don't. But if somebody did, I wouldn't say that they're crazy, you know? Like, no. This was also the first time they had encountered a place where there was no flashing of the lights, a place where they illuminated by natural light. Demon Hunter Colin narrowed his eyes and took out a small metal bottle and drank the liquid inside. After their evolution over the many generations, they were more accustomed to the dark environment with frequent lightning. They were intrinsically afraid of such a situation that was in state of frozen twilight. With the boat, it was both a point of hope and fear. After drinking the prepared potion and mentally preparing himself, Colin Iliad and Shepherd Lovia has a nice ring to it, I will say, led the members of the expedition team, and they stepped onto the region illuminated by the sunset. Before Derek could sense anything, he saw the unshadowed crucifix in his hand drop, revealing the corporal formed from pure light. However, the light emanated from the corporal body was no longer pure. It was tainted with an orange-red color unique to its dusk. Right on the heels of that, Derek felt a condition plummet. It was as if he was his weakest point in day, ready to welcome the approaching night. Okay, do you wanna know a ship that I kind of have, but I've been really scared to say because I feel like I'm gonna get judged for it? No, dude, this one's like actually crazy. And I God. No, this one's like actually insane. And I don't want to say it, but it's so funny. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna wait until everybody who will appreciate this is here. I'm gonna wait till everybody I'm gonna wait. No, don't bring up the fanfic. But here's the thing. Unknown, I'll say it when you, and we know who to call. We know who we need to be here for me to say this. Cause it's actually kind of diabolical when I say it. But I like low-key kind of ship it so hard. The towering building stood quietly in front is a frozen dust. There wasn't any sound in the area as though it was just an oil painting. After passing through such an environment, Derek Berg... I will say it has to do with Emlyn. I won't say who the other person is, but one of the people is Emlyn. Derek Berg became even more high-strung than when he had explored the depths of the darkness, and his hair on his back stood on end. After entering the place shrouded in dust, the entire exploration team, including Chief Colin Iliad and Shepherd Elder Lovia, couldn't help but show any signs of exhaustion, looking worn out. It was as if they had reached... No. Actually, I don't think it's that crazy. Exhaustion, looking worn out. It was as if they reached the end of their lives. And as they proceeded forward, rotting giants ran out of different buildings in increasing numbers. And increasing strength. With one side weak and another side strengthened, it became difficult for them to advance. After several intense battles, I'll say it when I finish Volume 5. When I finish Volume 5, I'll tell you who I kind of like really hardcore ship Emlyn with. For no reason other than I just think it would work. The City of Silver's expedition team finally broke through the lockdown and barricades of the monsters that came to an extremely quiet area. There wasn't any sound at all, and there was only served to leave their scalps tingling. With regards to this, Demon Hunter Cullen Iliad had no choice but to break the silence and remind everyone. This means that we have truly entered the Giant King's court, and are about to approach the core region. The danger level only increased and not decrease. Upon hearing this, a few members of the expedition team began to waver due to the influence of the twilight. From the point of view, although they didn't dare to stay in one place at the earlier stage, and most of the time after they would be surrounded by the rotting giants, they had ultimately eliminated all the monsters in a tiny area. They felt that they could resist for a while and obtain many bionic characteristics. Mystical items, mystical ingredients and potion formulas. This expedition could be said to have been very fruitful, leaving them no reason to continue delving deeper. What they should do was seek out a suitable building and set up the advance camp to make preparations for a second expedition. Faced with such a suggestion, Colin Iliad didn't say much. He only emphasized that the objective of this exploration was to figure out the general situation of the Giant King's court as much as possible, so as to accumulate sufficient information from the subsequent operations. It's Emlyn and Alger. Then he let out one of the members named Anatonia to placate those words and the wavering wills. As the shepherd Elder Lovia also supported the chief, a small number of members of the expedition team quickly No, because I'm gonna cry. I'm not saying psych. Oh my god, dude, my stomach hurts. I'm laughing. Just think about it. Just think about it. Just think about it. Just think about it. And then it like kind of makes sense. Then he let out the members of the Oh, did the room die? you join. Love you join. Oh my god, that's so funny. Thank you. No, that's what I'm saying. That's literally what I'm saying. Is I'm like, just hear me out. And then like when you kind of put it in your brain and you're like, you know what? Weirdly enough, in like a really, really fucking weird way, it makes sense. It does. Thank you. That's why you're a real one. It does. It makes sense in like a really weird way. Am I gonna get copyrighted for this? Honestly, I might consider it. This isn't even punishment for me. This is just punishment for everybody else. You know what? Oh my god. I'm gonna kill myself. That's the end of that. That's the end of that. Yeah. Anyway, that was a little break. Where I could give you maybe, I don't think that's like my worst take I've ever had, but it definitely was up there. That's probably right there when I said that, shocking that was voted worst song of all time. We listened to 0.5 seconds of it, and it actually made my ears bleed. I don't think that's my worst take I've ever had. I think my worst one was did I say Klein and Dally, or did I say Garamond Sparrow and Dally? I think the only person I said that I would agree Garamond Sparrow was Dally. But then I took it back because I was like, obviously Dally and Dud, and like, no one's allowed to be with Garamond Sparrow. I'll continue back to reading. Yeah, it was Garamond and Dally, that's what I said. But honestly, you know what? I stand by Alger and Emlyn. As the shepherd, Elder Lovia also supported the chief. A small number of members of the expedition. The expedition team quickly adjusted their mindset and quickly followed the chief forward. After a while, they saw a huge stone staircase. It was entirely grayish-white, but it had dyed with an orange-yellow glow. It was gorgeous and silent. Every step of the staircase was relatively high. If it were any ordinary human, they would definitely find it very difficult to walk. Fortunately, the shortest member of the expedition team was Elodovia, was nearly 1.9 You literally just sided with me and said that you would hear me out. Elder Lovia was nearly 1.9 meters tall, and she could muster a strong wind. On the huge staircase, it was so majestic that one had to look up at the city see the city walls at the top. There were many signs of burn marks and damage on the walls, and some places were impaled with arrows that had thick as ordinary trees. Don't do this to me. I already had to deal with Transparent doing this to me for, like, so long. I can't have another person do this to me. No. On a huge staircase was so majestic that one had to look up to the city walls. There was many signs of burn marks. Oh, in the middle of the city wall was a door that was tens of meters tall. The color was close to grayish blue, and there was golden nails embedded on it. There were 2 guards standing outside that exuded an extremely oppressive stance. I'm like pretty convinced too. simply by looking at them. They were 5 to 6 meters tall, wearing exquisite, sturdy silver full-body armor. One of them held a great sword, while the other held a great axe towards the ground. Behind the armored visor, there was a ball of orange light that looked like a single eye. Silver Knight. Demon Hunter Colin Iliad raised his right hand and swung the sword horizontally to stop the members of the expedition team behind them. He had a long... No. Is it back? Okay. He had recently come into contact with information that only upper echelons of the city of Silver knew about. He knew that the giant pathway sequence 3 was called Silver Knight. He also knew that the city of Silver, the correct potion formula, but it had a corresponding bionic characteristic. What horrified Derek was that the guards at the Giant King's core were actually 2 Sequence 3 demigods. This was a level higher than the city of Silver's strongest combat force. This was... Damn. Didn't know Red Angel Medici was in the fucking chat. My god. Kami's just mad because... No, literally. Because I did anything but read and started to, like, give my own opinion on things. That way, the chief could become a Silver Knight and greatly increase the strength of the city of Silver. When the time came, they could explore the Giant King's court at a deeper level, find more potion formulas, hunt the monsters, and obtain even higher level beyond characteristics and magical matters. Subconsciously, Derek looked around and discovered that the reaction of the other members of the expedition team, such as Joshua, Haim, and Antiona, were basically identical to his. They were both nervous and fearful, but also somewhat hopeful. At this moment, Shepherd Elder Lovia took 2 steps forward and stood behind Colin Iliad. She looked up at the grayish-blue door and 2 silver knights who were an unknown state and said, "If there was only one, then we would have a chance of finishing it off." What she really meant to say was that there were 2 silver knights. Even if they were willing to suffer heavy casualties, they would be unable to clear the entrance. After all, even if the chief could control the mystical creature form, a normal battle of Sequence 3, the environment here didn't permit him to make similar attempts. The dissonance that the twilight had brought might have something that could previously be resisted into something impossible to withstand. Colin Iliad nodded and glanced to both Lovia and Derek Berg before observing the area ahead. From the looks of it, as long as we don't get close to the door, the 2 guards won't attack us. Perhaps we can try to lure one of the silver knights away from the finishing it off, the female warrior named Antonia suggested after some deliberation. She had long, red wine hair, and her facial features were considered exquisite. However, when combined together, she looked extremely elegant and beautiful. In this exception, her main mission was to rely on the sealed artifact that wielded to treat her teammates' psychological problems and fight against enemies of the psychic domain. Her exact thoughts were to wait for the members to lure one of the silver knights away before using the terrain and their combined efforts. As the chief of Elder Lovia, they could work together and deal with the remaining one as soon as possible. This was a textbook solution that the City of Silver had used in situations they had encountered. Even if there's only one silver knight, it will be very difficult. Furthermore, there's no guarantee that the silver knight you lure away won't directly reveal his mythical creature form. Demon Hunter Colin firmly rejected his suggestion, ignoring the fact that Silver Knight had powerful beyond her powers as long as it revealed its mystical creature form. Most of the members of the City of Silver expedition team would be able to look at it directly and would be affected. There's no way they could run circles with him. Without waiting for the rest of the team members to speak, Colin Iliad looked back and said, "Let's take another path." Derek found some information in the world of reflections in Afternoon Town. He recorded a tunnel behind the Giant King's court. Shepherd Eldelovia cast her gaze on Derek Berg. She was indifferently calm and without any emotions. Derek subconsciously raised the unshattered crucifix higher, restraining his indiscernible shivers. All right, Lovia agreed with Colin Iliad's suggestion. Hence, the expedition team retreated from the huge stone staircase and headed left. Before long, they saw a rugged tail on the right of the towering cliff, and on the left of the bottomless chasm when tainted with the glow of the sunset. Of course, it was only a trail for giants to the members of the City of Silver expedition team. It was still relatively spacious. As they proceeded forward, Derek and company's spiritual perception was triggered as they subconsciously looked to the side. At the edge of the cliff, grayish-blue swollen palms stretched out from the orange clouds and grabbed onto the ground. They were densely packed and difficult to count. If they were all giants, even in the sequence 7 or 6 giants were able to destroy the City of Silver's expedition team here, relying on sheer numbers. Just as Colin Iliad was about to swing his sword, Derek suddenly had a strange, subtle feeling. He quickly raised the unshattered crucifix higher and pressed one of his fingers into a particular throne, causing bright red blood to sweep out. The pure cross emanated... No... The pure cross emanated... The pure cross emanated bright twilight glow as though it had returned to the state of noon. They surged towards the end of the... enveloping the gray-blue giants that attempted to climb up. The giants froze at the same time. Their bodies began to fade, quickly melting away. They weren't real giants, but there was a wraith of shadows left behind after the tragic death of those giants. Therefore, the unshadowed crucifix had sensed them. And I was like wondering if I was getting sick. Oh my god, no. I can do 7 more chapters. In the forest, the trees were tens of meters tall and were extremely thick. However, their bark was peeling off and the trunks rotting. The leaves were withered, giving off a feeling that they were waning. The leaves were supposed to be entangled together, but they formed a barricade in midair, blocking... We're making it! I promise. No. We're making it. I just might have to sign the last chapter. Blocking the air of dust, darkening the interior, but at this moment, due to the large number of collapsed and fallen trees, the orange-red glow had already scattered across most of the area within the forest that were visible with the naked eye. Oh my god, dude, it cut out so fast. What the fuck? Derek looked ahead and silently calculated how much longer he could use the unshadowed crucifix. He said to the chief and his teammates, "This is the waning forest where the ancestors of the giants are buried. In other words, the Giant King's parents." Colin Iliad stared at the forest and said, "It has already been destroyed. Even if there were remaining remnants of danger, it wouldn't be too powerful. We can try exploring it." Your Excellency. Yes, Your Excellency. Derek replied without hesitation. "My cross can deal with the environment here. I'll walk in front." He remembered that Mr. World had reminded him that there might be some kind of corruption lurking in the forest, and that the unshadowed crucifix could provide him with effective warning. The grizzled Colin nodded gently and said, "Be careful of your surroundings." Derek took a silent breath and took a large stride forward and walked towards the waning forest. At the same time, he used the convenience of walking ahead to softly recite Mr. Fool's honorific name. Then Klein, whose gaze had been blocked by the dust and had been disconnected for some time, could finally see the actual situation. However, he was unable to significantly expand his range of sight. The forest that should have been engulfed in darkness in the decline was filled with orange-red lights of... Nope, my voice just does this sometimes. There's not much anybody can do. The light was intense and the burden like fire. but it could help but carry a sense of brilliance with it that couldn't be ignored. With the unshadowed crucifix that seemed like pure light condensating in his condensating in his hand. Derek slowly walked ahead, and grizzled demon hunter Colin, who was lurking behind him in the left, held two straight swords in his hand. Haim, who was walking behind him in the right, held the Thunder God's Roar hammer with 2-meter-tall half-giant and prepared to switch the hammer for the sealed artifact of Derek at any time. The radiance emitted by the unshadowed crucifix became increasingly dim, as though the sun had already set the horizontal, leaving only the silver of golden light. See, this is what I get for shipping Emlyn with Alger. The gods were like, nope, absolutely not. Actually, silence from you. You are cut off. Of course, no one from the City of Silver had ever seen such a scene before. They could only use the description from ancient literature to imagine it. Similarly, this was the first time they understood what the sunset means. As an exploration team ventured in, the winds began to blow in nearly frozen, waiting forest. It was as if the countless living beings were weaving down in the forest. It was good. My voice was pretty good because I wasn't getting sick. So it wasn't bad for a while. But I think I've been getting sick the last couple days. It's normally the first thing to go. As the exploration team ventured deeper, the wind... No, literally. Me versus the true creator. See who's gonna win. Banded low and nearly frozen, waiting for us. It was as if countless living beings were weeping down within the forest. However, Derek and company didn't feel any effects of the wind. The sound of the wind intensified, making the heart tremble despite suddenly feeling a chill run down his neck, causing his hair to stand on end. His body and mind turned cold. Generally speaking, it was a human instinct to shrink their necks, raise their arms and defend their back in such moments. In the time, they would have turn their bodies, observe the situation, and be ready to attack. However, Derek didn't do so. Because in a dangerous environment, rashness would often result in terrible situations. Furthermore, he had the chief and his teammates behind him. He had full faith in him that they would react in time. Thus, he had handed his life to them. With a smooth and silvery white blade wrapped in small snake-like electral bolts, flew across the side of Derek's nape, vaporizing the blurry and twisted figures in the light of dust. At the same time, the unshadowed crucifix was triggered by something. It suddenly broke out of a gloomy, dim state, and making the light it emitted to once again become bright and pure. Dawn seemed to come up with the surrounding area immediately as describable black shadows began to show themselves in the light of dawn before quickly melting away. After everything calmed down, Derek looked ahead and asked curiously, "What are these?" "They don't look like wraiths, shadows, or evil spirits." Demon Hunter Colin surveyed the area and slowly said, "A remnant of aura of some sort. They seem to have combined with the power of dust, causing a certain anomaly. I've seen such monsters." Derek tightened his grip on his unshadowed crucifix and moved his other fingers, which hadn't been stabbed, into the thorns. Relying on the unshadowed crucifix, which was the nemesis of evil around them, the expedition team processed rather smoothly. Before long, they arrived deep in the waiting forest. Through the trees, they could vaguely see a cliff and orange-red clouds in the distance. The damage here wasn't too serious. The branches and leaves remained suspended in midair, blocking frozen dust, making the environment darken. After carefully circling around the place, the area before Derek's eyes suddenly lit up with 2 grayish-white molten tombstones. Before he could carefully observe them, the rays of dust that shone through the gasps of the leaves had produced a strange refraction effect at the same time, interweaving themselves into the gigantic figure that was nearly 10 meters tall. His figure was very blurry and contained the everlasting and impurable air to it. It was like a reflection from a mythical era. Its skin was grayish-blue, and it wore a silvery gray armor that seemed to be stained with blood. Its face was gloomy, like the setting sun. It thought as though it was manifesting of its eyes, just as existence alone had caused the surrounding trees and void to blend, making everything around it begin. "Fuck you, begin with uncontrollably. Upon witnessing this scene, a thought sacrificed in everyone's mind without any explanation. Giant King, Ancient God, Armir. Goosebumps appeared on the skins of the members and expedition team, Joshua, Haim, and Antiona. Bit by bit, the goosebumps emitted grayish-blue colors at the center of their eyebrows. Flesh and blood were squirming as if monsters were about to bore out. I was wondering if it did, because I was like, I feel like there might be. Here, I'll go out and go back in. I'll wait. No. Surprise, guys. I'm actually Corpse Husband. Secret's out. At the center of the eyebrows, flesh and blood were squirming as if monsters were about to bore out. They had collectively been put into the state of being on the verge of losing control. They didn't even see the mythical creature form, merely approached the figure had led to the signs of losing control as the severity of the increase. Derek Berg was relatively alright because the pure light of the unshadowed crucifix had enveloped him, giving him a warm feeling, allowing the temporal withstand the waning effects. At this moment, Colin Iliad had already bent down. He held two swords that were smeared with ointment, and he ran towards the terrifying figure like hurricane at high speeds. I actually just I actually just had a pack of Marlboro Lights, yeah. He held two swords that were smeared in ointments, and he ran towards the terrifying figure like a hurricane at high speeds. However, this demon hunter didn't change the straight line. His footwork was ingenuous, and he had moved left and right, approaching his enemies in a zigzag-like manner. The gigantic figure that stood in the twilight looked at everything with his sunset-like eyes. It seemed visionless, like a statue carved out of stone. Suddenly, the glow on his face flashed. It then bent down and heavily pondered its fist onto the ground. The ground shook violently as the fissures opened up and made Derek and the others lose their balance as they staggered and almost fell, as the demon hunter Colin had leapt up ahead of time to the height of more than 10 meters, and he cleaved downward with his two swords in a domineering manner. At this moment, the figure that seemed to come from the mythical legend pulled out an illusory sword from the fissures in the ground. The giant sword that seemed like a manifestation of dusk itself was suddenly swung forward. The red-orange storm of light suddenly took form and swept towards Demon Hunter Colin as well as Derek and company, who were right behind him. Whenever the light pressed down, the trees would wither and the soil would turn to sand. Everything began waning in an irreversible manner as the paths was drawn out. The twilight storm was blocked by invisible walls, causing the forest to shake. At some point in time, Shepherd Elder Lovey had appeared beside Derek. In front of him was a tall and illusory figure covered in silver armor. The figure with the dark red glow near the eyes genuflected and stabbed the illusory greatsword in the ground, creating an unusually strong and invisible wall. At this moment, Demon Hunter Colin Iliad, two swords slashed at the nearly 10-meter-tall figure that possessed the aura of an ancient god, sending off countless sparks. The silver-white figure did suffer any damage. The silver-gray armor was covered in blood spots, only dimmed a little. With the force of a rebound, Colin once again soared. He flipped in midair and launched his attack again. In the waning domain, he didn't dare release the mythical creature form because it was very likely that there was no way of reversing it. Seeing that the phantom that stemmed from the mythical legend had been blocked, Derek hurriedly followed the sudden tremor and heat from the unshadowed crucifix in his palm, and he pressed his fingers against a spike. His blood surged into the cross along the pane. A vigorous and bright light churned out, flying into the air and turning downwards, instantly enveloping the figure in a silver-gray armor. His eyes were like miniature setting sun. In the holy solemn, the pure light, the gigantic illusory figure stopped moving as if to encounter its natural enemy, and the silver-gray armor that was tainted with the light of dusk began to melt. Seizing this opportunity, the evil spirit knight in front of the shepherd elder Lova pulled the illusory greatsword from the ground. With several silver rifts in the oscillated between disappearing and reappearing, they instantly struck the enemy. Demon Hunter Colin, two swords cleaved down as though they were emitting rays of light, and dawn enveloped the head of the ancient figure. Joshua Hayan and the others didn't hesitate to unleash their strongest attacks. After 3 rounds, the illusory figure had seemed to transmigrate, and from time it began to crumble, being reduced to burning orange dots of light. When Demon Hunter Colin landed on the ground, he deliberately and said he should have been the remnants of the Giant King will protect this area. After many years of meddling with the environment and a certain degree of strength and form, it's the type of evil spirit. What secrets are hidden here? Upon hearing the chief's words, everyone cast their gaze forward towards the place where the terrifying phantom was buried their way in atmosphere and rather heavy. Fortunately, it was only an evil spirit that was restrained by the unshadowed crucifix. It was just a tiny portion of the remains that remnants will and had almost no strength left. After thousands of years, it's still as terrifying as ever. What would a real ancient god be like? Why would he have such strong will to protect this? Is it because this is where his parents are buried? As Derek heaved a sigh of relief, he followed the chief and company towards the tomb, where being plagued with puzzlement and curiosity. There's no need for me to do anything. I have to say, this unshadowed crucifix really is very useful in the Giant King's court. It's so good that I'm wondering if it's Adam's goal. Above the grey fog, Klein heaved a sigh of relief and lowered the sea god's scepter that had been raised higher. He then cast his gaze at the place where the Giant King's remnants had conjured, producing over thousands of years. The first thing he saw was 2 ancient molten tombstones. On them were the words Mother and Father in Jotun. They contained a mysteriousness that could stir the powers of nature. It allowed one to directly feel the mixed emotions of nostalgia, sadness, pain, and guilt without realizing that they were inflicted and making them feel disparate. Beside the stone pillar was a grave, but it had already been destroyed, revealing 2 black coffins underneath. It was unknown who had opened the lids of the coffins, as though the confirmation had been made. This made the 2 grayish-white skeletons lying inside become bathed in the light that perpetuated through the leaves, dyeing them with an orange-red color that resembled blood. These 2 skeletons had the shape of humans. One was less than 1.9 meters tall, while the other was less than 1.8 meters tall. No, that's like not super tall at all. I'm pretty sure 1.9 is only like 6'2", and then 1.8 is only like 6 foot or something like that. I don't even know if that's 6 foot. Yeah, like it's not. It's about 6. Yeah, like they're not super tall, which is really confusing. Because aren't they supposed to be? Yeah, 5'11" and 6'2". Why are they like so small? One of the 2 humanoid skeletons was more than 1.9 meters tall, while the other was less than 1.8 meters tall. It looked ordinary, but it delivered an unimaginable blow to Klein, who was above the gray fog. At that moment, it was as though he had returned to the time when he saw the door of light and the cocoons. Although the emotions he felt were different, the shock was almost identical. This isn't the corpse of a giant. This definitely belongs to humans. The parents of the Giant King Armir were humans. Klein's pupils dilated suddenly, as though they were thirsting to let more light in for him to see it more clearly. However, no matter how he observed or scrutinized the skeletons, he couldn't find any characteristic of giants from the 2 grayish-white skeletons. Their limbs were perfectly proportioned. Their bodies had 2 eye sockets. They were definitely not underage giants. After a brief moment of silence, Klein lowered his head with the sea god scepter once again, as though flashed thoughts through his mind. Perhaps their parents aren't related by blood. Maybe the ancestors of the giants are humans. In the first epoch, there was chaos and madness reigned. Some humans fused with beyond characteristics, mutating into cruel, irrational, and bloodthirsty giants. On the other hand, their descendants inherited their physical characteristics, and on the one hand, their descendants inherited their physical characteristics. On the other hand, they gradually recovered mentally, hence, they stabilized themselves to become savage and bloodthirsty race. Among them, Giant King Army was the first batch of mutants, but he had managed to maintain a certain level of rationality, hence becoming an ancient god. The source of all this doesn't resemble the original myth, the original creator. After his thoughts settled into his theory, he began making connections while coming with more questions. Why does the Giant King want to label the Waning Forest as the forbidden area and not allow any living creatures to enter? He doesn't wish for the fact that humans being the ancestors of giants to be known. But if that's really the case, he could have just cremated his parents' remains. There's no need to go through so much trouble. More, what's to say that a strong sense of guilt? Who opened the God of Dawn, Bad Hill, or the other subsidiary gods for the Giant King's court? Also, since the ancestors of giants were humans, what about the elves, sanguine, and other supernatural beings? The ancestors of dragons are actually lizards? In the middle of the Second Epoch, there were factors regarding to their different origins that led to conflict between different factions of the quasi-human immunes. As Klein didn't have enough clues or information, it was difficult for him to make any judgments or think of any more possibilities. He could only forcefully rein in his thoughts and focus his attention on the City of Silver's expedition team. At this moment, Demon Hunter Colin led Lovia, Derek, and company to a stone tablet and saw the remnants of the tomb. They also fell into an indescribable silence for a long time. Finally, Joshua, who was wearing a scarlet glove, asked hesitantly, "These are the parents of the Giant King?" From the City of Silver's Dawn Paladin's point of view, the two corpses were indeed not tall giants. They were even inferior to him from back when he had just become an adult. If they were identical as young giants, the proportions and facial features of their bodies didn't match. Joshua's questions reverberated in the surroundings, but no one answered. After a few seconds, Demon Hunter Colin slowly said, "That's why it's a secret." He didn't mention his thoughts or theories. Does this mean that giants are actually a branch of humans, a result of transformation brought about by beyonder characteristics? Upon hearing this, the red-haired Antiona said thoughtfully, "The ancestors of giants are humans." Derek felt a little dizzy from the shock. He felt that there was a huge gap between the two. With his thoughts in mind, he recalled the companions who had lost control, especially those from the giant pathway. He slowly and vaguely believed that it was impossible. Those who lost control usually became abnormally large. Their skin was covered in grayish-blue color, and there was a huge crack in the middle of their brows and stuck to their pairs of eyes. Perhaps, Demon Hunter Colin answered previously. The members of the City of Silver's expedition team fell silent once again. In this atmosphere, Derek glanced at Shepherd Elder Lovia and realized that this member of the six-member council had a calm expression. "I knew it! I knew it! She's up to something, and she's gonna do something. I don't trust her." It was neither solemn nor confused. At this moment, Demon Hunter Colin looked around and said, "Split up into groups. I swear to God, if Derek goes with Lovia." Split up into groups, and the 2 or 3 people in search of the surrounding areas. Let's see if there's anything to be found. The members of the expedition team backed to their sense and began carefully exploring the area of the chief's instruction. Unfortunately, the waning forest didn't have anything of value other than trees, tomb tablets, and tombs. Without further delay, Derek exchanged sealed artifacts with Ham to prevent his beyond characteristic of being purged by the unshadowed crucifix. Then they followed Demon Hunter Colin Iliad out of the waning forest, circled around the protruding boulder along the mountain, and regained a gigantic cave that was 30 meters tall. Outside the cave, the stone steel had already shattered into pieces and was growing weeds. Under the orange glow of the twilight, there was an indescribable sense of waiting death. After entering the cave, the City of Silver's expedition team followed the weathered stone slab and the peeling murals. They walked between the withered weeds and rough gravel, and they wearily explored the areas. After each step they took, they would feel their lifespan were weakening and were becoming dehydrated. After an unknown period of time, the City of Silver's expedition team finally saw a grayish-blue door which was open. On both sides of the door were pieces of iron-black fragments that seemed to belong to some sort of armor. "There should have been guards here," Colin said simply. He took out a bottle of medicine and gulped it down. His light blue eyes were quickly tinged with a layer of dark yellow, and complex dark green symbols appeared in his pupils. After carefully observing the grayish-blue door for a while, he nodded and walked into the dark hall. All of them passed through the door and came inside. The hall seemed to be held by an invisible hand as it rose up after a loud thud. After more than 10 seconds, the hall stopped moving. Outside the door, a magnificent palace propped up on stone pillars appeared. It looked like the residence of the guards. Derek subconsciously looked around and swept. His gaze crossed the various items of the hall. He saw 2 murals with ancient characteristics. The main character of the mural was a giant who wore full-body silver armor and emanated an obvious glow. At the location of his eyes were a bob descending from the dawn of light. In the middle of the armor mural stood a lady with long, dark brown hair. She was a female giant in a long leather skirt, and she held a wheat head and fruits with surrounded by fields ready to harvest, clear lake waters, fruit-bearing trees, and bright mushrooms. God of dawn, Bad Hill, God of harvest, Amabella. Derek came to the realization. He nodded slightly. He then retracted his gaze and saw Chief staring at the mural that represented the goddess of harvest. His expression was still as heavy as before. Is the chief hoping that the city of Silver would also have a real harvest? As Derek thought, he followed the orders of Shepherd Elder Lovia. Don't do it, Derek. Don't do it, Derek. Forming a team with others, they then searched for valuable items and checked if there was any hidden passageways. About 7 or 8 minutes later, they gathered together and followed Chief Colin Iliad into the main door of the hall. Colin Iliad stabbed 2 swords into the gap between the stone stabs of the front of him. He stretched out his hand and pressed them on both sides of the door. With just a bit of force, it opened its mouth with a heavy rumble. The orange and splendid light of the dusk silently shone in, allowing the City of Silver's expedition team to see places of the numerous towers and delivered a strong visual impact. The scale, magnificence, and epic feeling of the mythic felt more obvious and shocking due to the close proximity between them. Everyone subconsciously held their breath and forgot about anything else. Thank you, fully immersing themselves in the scenery. It was a safe recline above the great fog. This was the King's Court of Giants. This was a real divine kingdom. After about 10 seconds, Demon Hunter Colin pulled out his sword and half turned his body, saying to Shepherd Lovia, "Try checking out the situations on both sides. I can't see what lies ahead too clearly." The 2 dark green symbols in his eyes slowly dissipated. Lovia acknowledged his orders and took 2 steps forward of the door. Outside of the platform was a staircase on both sides. In front of them stood a railing formed of grayish-white stone pillars. In the face of the tallest building in the area, there was a huge blue-gray door with countless mysterious symbols carved into both sides. It looked extremely dignified. The corner stores and other objects connected to a multitude of places towards towers. They were magnificent and brilliant. Lovia's silver-gray hair floated up as the stone and the bathed in the light and the dust protruded out, forming a grayish-white doll. The doll didn't have any spirituality, was likely strung puppet as it walked to the left. It followed the staircase and walked down to one level after another amidst the rich orange light that helped the expedition team confirm the situation. Suddenly its body stopped. Its fine silver lights burst out from within, turning into countless fragments. Shepherd Lovia wasn't alarmed. She followed the steps from before and created another stone golem, making it head to the right. This time the stone golem walked to the end of the staircase and stopped by the entrance of the palace before, without anything happening along it. Demon Hunter Khalid watched intently as the entire time before saying, "Let's go to the right, but we have to be careful as well." Although he didn't find any danger, the fact that he couldn't discern the actual situation using his beyonder powers meant that there were too many problems. With such a reminder, Derek and company became even more and more tense. The groups of the 3 began slowly walking down as they watched each other's backs. As they walked along the high stairs, Joshua, who was wearing a scarlet glove, suddenly heard the series of tapping sounds coming from behind him. It was as if there was a person following them in silence, and at this moment, Shepherd Elder Lovia was at his side. From the corners of his eyes, he couldn't tell the footsteps were definitely not coming from her. They are. A chill ran down Joshua's spine as he hurriedly said, in a deep voice, "There are footsteps behind me." Lovia turned her head and allowed the 5-meter-tall Silver Knight to appear in front of her. It sidestepped Joshua's back with its scarlet, fiery eyes. A few seconds of silence. The shepherd elder shook her head. "There's nothing there." "Lying bitch." No. Get rid of her. I want her gone." No, because here's the thing. She's been acting weird. Get rid of her. Yes, she would. She's been acting weird since she showed up. I think she showed up in like volume 2 or something. Since she showed up, she's been weird. She's been suspicious. She's been doing things, and I don't like it. I want her gone. Because if she does anything to Derek, it's on sight. Lovia's response made Joshua even more wary. He looked at the other members of the expedition team and anxiously said, "Did any of you hear any abnormal footsteps?" With Thunder God's roar, I'm gonna fuck her up. I don't want to see her. I also still have to see the trailers. I'm gonna watch the trailers. Shut up. I'm gonna watch the trailers probably tomorrow, and do a reaction to them, because I want to see them. I haven't seen them yet. Ham, who held the unshattered crucifix in his hand, looked at the sealed artifact that was still glowing and replied, "Perhaps it's your hallucination." "No, I heard it very clearly." The scarlet-gloved Joshua frowned and expressed his opinion. Upon hearing this, Demon Hunter Colin, who was walking right in front, half turned around and calmly instructed, "Ham, Antonia." Oh my god. "Check out Joshua's condition." "Yes, Sir Excellency." Haim immediately walked to Joshua and pressed the unshattered crucifix, which appeared to be manifesting a pure light against the teammate's forehead. However, the sealed artifact didn't undergo any changes. Immediately following that, the wine-red-haired female warrior Antiona came to the side of Joshua and raised her left hand. There was a pale gold bracelet around her wrist. I'm not stopping. I'm making it to chapter 1120. I'll be fine. There's a pale gold, unless it doesn't sound good. If it literally doesn't sound good, I'll stop. But if it doesn't sound bad, I'm gonna keep going. Around her wrist, on it were 3 small bells covered in golden scales. The tinkling sounds that sounded calmed Joshua's heart. It was no longer tense and impatient. "No problem." Antiona cast her gaze towards Chief Colin Iliad. 2 complex dark green symbols appeared in Colin's eyes. He looked at Joshua for a few seconds before nodding and saying, "It might not be an illusion, but you have to be careful and abnormalities arise within you." Seeing that Chief supported him, Joshua secretly heaved a sigh of relief. "All right." After the doubts were temporarily put away, the City of Silver's expedition team continued down the staircase and was covered in the glow of sunset on another level. Suddenly, everyone had grown. From the corners of his eyes, Derek Berg saw Joshua raise his right hand and strangle his neck. He was a Dawn Paladin with immense strength. Just as he let out a grunt, his hand slapped his neck. With a gloomy and twisted expression, Joshua collapsed, his eyes filled with disbelief. "Okay, bye, Joshua. It was nice knowing you." The person who killed him was himself. Although Derek and the others didn't manage to react in time, their years of training and experience had gained from exploring what the fuck? Experience they had gained from exploring the depths of the darkness made them instinctively take up battle positions, wary of any subsequent attacks. Then they heard a muffled grunt. It was from Shepherd Elver Lodia. It was from Shepherd Elder Lovia. The facial muscles of the woman with long silver gray hair tightened, and obvious twitching and squirming appeared as though her face had grown out. Is she dying or is she mutating? She plopped to the ground on the wide staircase and grimaced with indescribable pain. Her hands moved slowly but uncontrollably. She clenched her neck. Just as Lovia was about to exert her strength, 2 swords that were smeared with silver gray ointment reached out and pried at her palms apart. Demon Hunter Colin, who was already prepared, reacted in time. Lovia's body twitched as she lowered her head even further. Opening her mouth, she spat out a piece of torn flesh and incomplete organs. She took a deep breath, and though she had finally recovered, then she propped her elbow on the ground and took a step forward, prostrating herself and swallowing the flesh and blood organs that she had just spat out in a pious and humble manner. Pause, pause, pause. There's only one other character. There's only one other character that I've seen do this, and it was Mr. A. There's only one other character I've seen do this, and it was Mr. A. Is she a part of the Aurora Order? I don't trust this bitch. I don't trust her. Demon Hunter Colin, who had several old scars on his face, quietly watched the scene without stopping her. Finally, Lovia looked up and said with an unfocused gray eyes, it was degeneration, a form of degeneration that everyone has. Bro, I'm about to Erica Kirk this bitch with my eyes. No way she's trustworthy. That's what I'm saying. Do you have a solution? Colin asked without any changes in his tone. Lovia added without hesitation, yes. As soon as she finished speaking, she used her right hand to grab her left index finger with a loud snap. She pulled it out and stuffed the blood and bones into her mouth. As she chewed, she muttered, I fucking called it! The Lord that created everything, the Lord that reigns behind the curtain of shadows, the degenerate nature of all living things, the honorific name of the true creator. Derek's eyelids twitched when he heard that. He suddenly felt that something subtle was happening around him. I fucking called that shit. She is not to be trusted. The orange glow became more saturated. No, but she's up to something. Become more saturated and close to the color of blood. Above the gray fog, the fool Klein's expression instantly turned solemn. Because she's up to something. She's gonna do something, and I know she is. I also maybe forgot that she was part of the true creator. That could also be a thing too. I don't trust her. Above the gray fog, the fool Klein's expression instantly turned solemn. Though he couldn't see anything through his true vision, he could vaguely sense that there was a gaze cast over from afar, causing it to interfere with the observation, thus weakening his clarity and range. In addition, the gaze gave him a strange sense of familiarity. It's difficult to not be familiar with it. The first half of my life after I transmigrated was to deal with him, his son, his oracle, his wish to descend. The items left behind by him, his crazy ravings, and all sorts of murals related to him. Truly memory of a broccoli. At that moment, Klein was completely certain that the entity who had begun to focus on the City of Silver expedition team was none other than the true creator. Frankly speaking, when Lovia began to recite the honorific name of the entity, Klein wanted to directly smite her with Lightning Storm and eliminate the problem before it appeared. However, he ultimately held back an urge because he wasn't confident that he could finish off the shepherd in one strike. That evil spirit that Lovia had grazed was likely the level of a Sequence 3. Although it had died long time ago, its currently combined strength was still at the level of Sequence 4. It likely wasn't the problem for her to withstand Lightning Storm, which was close to, but not at the angel level of some time. And once the fool could easily kill Lovia, it would be a sign of fear in her eyes, as Demon Hunter Colin. In addition, Klein believed that Colin Iliad was happy to see Shepherd Lovia chant the true creator's honorific name. He wanted to use this to put the fool in check and achieve some semblance of balance. This was actually an act of disrespect in front of deities, making it look very easy to anger those existences, but this was nothing that Colin couldn't do. He could simply trust the fool and the true creator, so he could only try his best to probe them while staying on the edge of the cliff. Only by doing so would the City of Silver not suddenly be destroyed like the cities that had been buried deep within the darkness, covered with the dust of history. What a pity. If the Unshadow Crucifix was in my hands now, I'd have the chance to instantly kill the Silver Knight evil spirit by using all my strength to activate the powers of the mysterious space above the great fog. It's a fundamental restraint. Klein sighed slightly and could only accept its development. He hadn't discovered anything unusual with Joshua until the City of Silver warrior in scarlet gloves strangled himself. Only then did he see the spirit turn dark and gloomy. Just as Shepherd Elder Lovia had said, this was a form of degradation, and he originally had. It was only different from losing himself because of the money and beauty, making it difficult for external forces to detect it. The staircase should have remained remnant godhood powers that represent degradation. They're embedded into environments, making it difficult to discover and resist. Previously, the stone golem had no spirituality, so it wasn't affected. From the honorific name, the true creator wields control over degeneration. Just his gaze alone is enough to disperse the corresponding powers. Klein adjusted his mental state and continued to observe the subsequent developments. During this process, he couldn't help but consider a question. Was the true creator like him now, watching the movements of the City of Silver's expedition team in his divine kingdom? Not gonna lie, we haven't done many true creator things in a while. I was kind of wondering what he was up to. On Earth, this is called a fellow viewer watching the same live stream. If I were to send gifts, would the true creator gift even more? By making this teasing remark, he tried to ease the nervousness and concern he felt from having the true creator cast his gaze over. That was the true God. Be it Adam or Amon, they weren't even qualified to be on par with him. At that moment, Shepherd Lovey had already stood up, and her left index finger had also grown back. She looked at Chief Colin Iliad and said, "This region will no longer suffer from degeneration." This meant that the staircase wasn't dangerous anymore. Normally, the expedition team would ignore Joshua's corpse. Whether they advanced or retreat, they could afford to waste any time. If they stayed in an extremely dangerous area for too long, the other members would have an accident. However, since the 6-member council, Elder Lovia used a tone of certainty to indicate that there was no problem nearby. Don't trust her. They could rest and deal with it. Derek put down Ham's broadsword and walked to Joshua's side. After staring for a few seconds, he bent down to pick up the scarlet glove and wore it on his left palm. He still remembered that Joshua was lying bragging about the mystical item he had obtained during his expedition. He could also certainly recall that when he left the afternoon town camp, he had said that he would be forced into marriage after the expedition, with no idea as to who his wife would be yet. An hour later, this teammate had turned into a cold corpse. Damn. Give it 1 hour and I'll be a cold corpse too, buddy. I'm following you there. As the people of the city silver, this was something that happened frequently. No one cried, no one broke down. However, there was an emotion that had already seeped into their bones and blood. It was heavy and mixed with grief. They watched as Derek raised the left hand and aimed it at Joshua's corpse. A blazing flame flew out, enveloping the teammate who had been fighting alongside them earlier. After the cremation, Demon Hunter Colin put away the bionic characteristic that had seeped out. The rest of the team members grabbed a handful of ashes and placed them into a hidden pocket in their clothes. Amidst the silence, they continued down the stairs and arrived at the bottom of the staircase. There were towering palace bathed in glow of dust. Behind the corridor, the staircase led to another area. The palace door was open and it pitched black inside. Not a single ray of light could shine inside. Rude. Demon Hunter Colin carefully observed for a while before saying, just like an outside world. What he meant was that the group should use various means to maintain a little environment, not allow themselves to fall into a state of absolute darkness. Hence, Ham activated the shadow crucifix, allowing it to envelop all his teammates. At the same time, Antiona lit a lantern and held it in her hand in case the cross suddenly lost its effectiveness. The group entered a palace and walked through the abnormally empty hall. Their footsteps reverberating in the distance, but they weren't any echoing sounds. As he walked, Derek suddenly felt his eyelids grow heavy felt a strong sense of sleepiness. At this moment, he heard the chief's low growl, "Don't fall asleep." Derek suddenly woke up, snapping out of a fatigued state of not being able to open his eyes. At that moment, a female warrior's body went limp and fell to the ground as though she had fallen into a deep slumber. Then she disappeared into thin air and disappeared in front of everyone. Demon Hunter Colin and Shepherd Lovia exchanged looks for a while before shaking their heads and leading the team forward. During this process, they would hurt themselves from time to time, using pain to stay awake. Finally, they passed through a bunch of arches and saw the darkness that couldn't be dispelled up ahead. With the help of light from the team, they discovered that it was a hall of countless murals drawn. In the middle of the hall was a long, dark red table. Suited around were high-backed chairs. With intricate patterns. Derek felt a baffling sense of familiarity. He immediately came to the realization that this is somewhat similar to the scene of the tarot gathering. Suddenly, balls of light lit up and murals sounded around them. Around the hall stood up pillars that didn't support the dome. Scarlet flames were ignited one after another, illuminating the surroundings of abnormal manner. The murmurs grew louder as if they finally passed through a long and distant space and arrived at the destination. The hall was so lively, and it was as if the gathering was held. Around the dark red table, blurry and illusory figures suddenly appeared. A total of 11 figures sat at different high-backed chairs. Did we know there was previous tarot gatherings? Is that like a thing that we knew? Because if we did, I don't remember. I'm sorry, really confused here. As the flames flickered, Derek and company subconsciously looked at the long, dark red table. The first thing they noticed was the figures closest to them. The figure wore a simple linen robe and had a head of long silver hair and intrinsicable facial features. It made Colin, Lovie, and Derek find the figure oddly familiar. In an instant, Sorry, I read ahead. In an instant, they felt as though the bolt of lightning struck their minds, illuminating their blurry memories. Angel of Fate, Aurora Boreas. Just as the pupils of the teams from the City of Silver dilate, the figure turned around to look at them. A pair of indifferent eyes immediately occupied their vision, and extraordinary mysterious rings appeared. In a daze, Derek saw a figure in front of him. It was handsome, radiant, energetic man. He wore a pure white robe and had short golden hair. In his appearance, the surrounding became abnormally bright and warm, feeling like a ray of light instantly filling every spot. Derek felt as though he had seen the day as mentioned in legends. Momentarily forgetting where he was or what he was doing, the man took a step forward and his blurry figure overlapped with Derek. Then Derek sat beside the dark red long table, occupying one of the high-backed chairs. He had become a handsome and radiant man who was attending a secret gathering. At the same time, the grizzled City of Silver chief Colin, whose face was covered in old scars, encountered the same blurry and illusory figure. The figure was 7 or 8 meters tall. He was wearing silver full-body armor, and his eyes were glowing like the light of dawn. He raised a long sword in his hand, letting it press against Colin Iliad's forehead as a scepter. Demon Hunter Colin struggled for a moment, but he quickly calmed down when he was enveloped by orange light. With that, he and the giant in front of him merged into one. He strode towards the dark red table and sat on the second seat at the right. Shepherd Lovia encountered a man at the long black robe. He had black curly hair over his shoulders and a pair of eyes that seemed to cover in shadows. It was difficult to see his face clearly, but the silver threads, complicated patterns, and gorgeous accessories were directly reflected in her mind. Lovia trembled and couldn't help but lower her head, allowing the layers of black wings on the man's back to wrap around her. She became the man and walked to the end of the dark red table. There were 2 high-backed chairs with complex patterns placed there. Lovia chose the left one. The remaining members of the City of Silver expedition team also encountered similar situations, but the figures they faced were different. After they found the seats on both sides of the dark red table and area around an empty high-backed chair, the seat of honor became darker, outlining the female figure that seemed to be shrouded in fog. Right on the heels of that, a voice that seemed to transmigrate from ancient times echoed in the ears of the attendees. We are trying to redeem ourselves and also maintain the balance of this world. Dissociation and deviation are undoubtedly the most basic order. This is also in line with his thoughts. I can't deny that we all have our own sinister thoughts and desires, but this is very normal. Death and spilling blood are inevitable. In the name of Rose Redemption. Above the great fog, Klein listened attentively. He couldn't wait to hear more of the content said by the voice. However, whether it was a secret or a voice, it began to loop. It was as if it had only been fixed at the section lasting less than a minute. This is the scene of the establishment of the Rose Redemption. Previously, the Red Angel Evil Spirit said that this was an extremely secretive organization, established by a group of corrupt angels. Now it seems like this isn't the case. The person who said that is probably not Medici, but either Sauron or Endhorn. They actually didn't know much about Rose Redemption. Klein muddled inwardly as he cast his gaze back to the City of Silver team. They were repeating the action like puppets, approaching the table, sitting down, listening, and leaving. When the torches around the hall lit up one after another, Klein had already found something unusual with his true vision. He saw the murals on the wall come alive and rapidly expand, overlapping with the hall. It made the tables and chairs and floor tiles that had been cold for thousands of years warm up once again. It made the figures that once again had been in secret meetings across of the borders of times, revering with their fixed seats, allowing the words from the past to reappear. Many of those figures were familiar to Klein. One of them was the Angel of Fate, Aurora Boreas. The King of Angels, who still is a member of the Rose Redemption, was the most lifelike among them illusory figures. Combined with how the scenes were looping, Klein began to suspect that the person who left the murals was Tail Devourer Aurora Boreas. In the previous temple ruins, there was murals left behind by him. Likewise, for the ruins of the Battle of the Gods, the Giant King's court, there are similar murals and signs of those powers. It would believe it if anyone were to say it's not him.
Just how much does the King of Angels like murals? He draws them whenever he goes. Klein couldn't help but lampoon Ouroboros in his mind. The second figure he noticed was sitting behind the angel of fate Ouroboros. He was dressed in black armor and seemed to be slashed with blood. He had red hair and resembled fire, looking young and handsome. The reason why he paid attention to the figure was because he had seen it in his dreams. In addition, it was also the most arrogant person amongst all the figures. Amongst all the figures, not only did it sit back in its chair, but it also placed its feet on the I love how he calls it its feet on the desk of the red long table. It didn't mind that the surrounding people were high-level figures of the same status. Red Angel Medici. These are the kings of angels who participated in the secret gathering. Who else is involved? Klein's thought raced as he decided to first rescue the people from the City of Silver who couldn't exit the looping cycles of fate. He had a lot of experience in this accident. Yes, the medium to the loop is the hall itself. However, there's no need to attempt to destroy it. As long as I can temporarily break the cycle of fate, the dusk outside will sleep and dispel any abnormalities. They belong to the divine kingdom itself. In terms of status, they can only be stronger or on par with the power left behind by Ouroboros. After observing a few seconds, Klein quickly came to the conclusion. After flipping a gold coin for divination, he immediately spread his spirituality towards the crimson star representing the sun. Derek Berg's spirit body immediately tore through the cycle of fate, creating an invisible crack. The orange glow flowed from the light of dusk outside the palace, immediately surging into the hall from the window high up. Without waiting for Little Sun to figure out the situation, he feared that the true creator would lock on to him. Klein didn't hesitate to let him return to the real world. Derek slowly snapped out of his daze and realized that he had unknowingly sat down to the side of the dark red table. He looked up blankly and saw the chief, Elder Lovia, Hayam, Antiona, and the others. He realized that there was still certain traces of confusion on their face. Thinking back to his experiences just now, Derek was alert, as he has deliberately said, the cycle of fate. Indeed. Colin Iliad, who had experienced this before, nodded slightly and stood up. He looked around, and his gaze landed on the largest mural that had been seen lately. The mural depicted this exact hall. There were similar columns, torches, and dark red tables, complicated pattern, high-back chairs, and object layouts. As for those high-back chairs, there were 11 figures sitting in them. At the end, there were 2 seats, and along the table 5 and left 4 on the right. The City of Silver's team eyes also followed the chiefs and took in the corresponding scene. The 5 figures on the left were beautiful silver-haired men, the red-haired and arrogantly seated man, the elder wearing a hood that exposed his mouth, wrinkles, and beard, a dignified middle-aged man dressed in black armor, a handsome man dressed in white robes. The 4th on the right were black-robed mummy wrapped in bandages, a middle-aged man with facial features resembling the natives of the southern continent, a giant covered in silver armor, a simple, beautiful, and dignified lady. The 2 high-back chairs at the very end were a man with dark, black, curly hair and a woman shrouded in fog. At that moment, the guardian raised his right hand and pointed at the handsome white-robed man. His figure is made up of mysterious symbols. These symbols represent White Angel Accusis. Before the guardian could finish his sentence, he suddenly let out a tragic cry of golden flames spew from his body. He instantly became a charred corpse. Oh my god. As if he would reduce to the ashes the moment it was touched. It made Demon Hunter Colin and Shepherd Lovia incapable of saving him in time. Crazy. Don't try to distinguish those symbols. They contain immense power. Colin hurriedly warned the others, and above the gray fog, Klein was thinking of another matter. White Angel Accusis. That is the Eternal Blazing Sun's true name. If not for the fact that the Giant King's court itself isolates itself from projection powers, just using Jotun to read the names will attract his attention and incur divine punishment. Amidst his thoughts, Demon Hunter Colin stabbed his sword in front of him, creating an invisible barrier. Then the City of Silver chief identified the symbol and label that formed those figures. He began reading it slowly and firmly formed the letter. Angel of Fate Ouroboros, War Angel Medici, Wisdom Angel Hera Bergen. At this point, the invisible barrier that was constantly shaking suddenly stopped. This was because these names was no stranger to the people of the City of Silver. This was the true name of the Dragon of Wisdom. Could it be that the dragon of wisdom later became the wisdom angel next to the Lord? Similar questions arose in everyone's hearts, but Klein discovered something strange. The history of the city of Silver had records of the name Herbergen. The language they used on a daily basis was Jotun, a language that could mobilize the surrounding forces of nature. This also meant that the past 3,000 years, not 100,000 years, someone in the city of Silver had to definitely read or write the name Herbergen before, but there was no response from the God of knowledge and wisdom. The Church of Knowledge and Wisdom still wasn't able to find the forsaken land of gods. At this moment, Colinelli had controlled his emotions and continued reading. Wind Angel Leodero, White Angel Acusis, Dark Angel Sasri, Evernight Goddess Amanases, God of Combat Badhill, Earth Mother Amabella, God of Death Salinger, God of Spiritual Earth Mother Amabella, God of Spiritual Creatures Talsna. Although Klein had expected this, he was still somewhat stunned. The former Rose Redemption was frighteningly powerful. Amongst the 7 deities today, 6 of them were members. There was also Death, a god of spiritual creatures, and 3 kings of angels. This made him recall what the Red Angel Evil Spirit had once said. Rose Redemption has a close relationship with the birth of the true creator. It's impossible for you to imagine that certain people were once members of the Rose Redemption, but they've since left it. No, dude. That's a crazy list. Absolutely not would I want anything to do with that. In the past, the Rose Redemption could be called the Deity Alliance, but such an organization could only develop itself quickly and quietly under the might of an ancient sun god. Crazy. It had to hide, and secretly scheme in the place of dusk. How powerful was the ancient sun god in the past? Klein couldn't help but let out a breath. Oh my god, and I thought being targeted by the Tarot Club was scary. Hide in the secret scheme of the Palace of Dust. How powerful was the ancient sun god in the past? Klein couldn't help but let out a breath as he felt deeply poignant. He examined his own Tarot Club and realized that compared to the Rose Redemption, it was like child's play. No, literally. Even if he counted the auxiliary members, Willow Septon, Pallas Zorast, Azek Eggers, Renette Tinker, there was no way to compare to the Rose Redemption at its peak. No, even if I compare it with the current watered-down version of Rose Redemption, there's still a huge gap between it and the Tarot Club. After all, its leaders and converter is only a Sequence 4 saint. Klein gave a self-deprecating laugh as he turned his attention to the 11 figures. Based on their images, titles, and true names, I can confirm that the Wind Angel, Wisdom Angel, and White Angel are currently the Lord of Storms, God of Knowledge and Wisdom. Holy shit. The Lord of Storms, God of Knowledge and Wisdom, and the Eternal Blazing Sun. They really betrayed the ancient sun god, the City of Silver creator, and they even feasted on the deity. They served the god of combat and Earth Mother, indeed survivors of the Giant King's court. One of them is the eldest son of the Giant King, and the other is his queen. Their mother and son, so that way, the fact that Boehner Potter didn't directly declare war on the Lord of Storms to help Basak makes things a little odd. It requires some thought. Also, the goddess was indeed a former subsidiary god of Annihilation Demonic Wolf. The goddess of misfortune, Amences, after the ancient god perished, not only did she grasp the authority of Evernight and successfully ascend to the throne of Sequence 0, she also single-handedly destroyed all the descendants of Phlegraeo, sealed the Antigonus family's angel within the nation of Evernight, and used the Mother of Sky's body as her vessel for a descent. That's ruthless. Oh my god. As a blessed of Evernight, Klein subconsciously raised his head to look around when he thought of this, afraid of his inner thoughts would leak out into the outside world. No, she really did that. After entering the foggy town and learning that the Antigonus and the Mother of Sky were descendants of the ancient god Phlegraeo, Klein had a certain idea as to the true identity of the Evernight goddess. After all, in the history of the City of Silver, it clearly states that the Annihilation Demonic Wolf controlled the authority of the Evernight and had many strange powers. Combined with the Antigonus family's possessions of the seer pathway and the mother of sky and the nations of the night clearly belonged to Evernight. Klein suspected that the annihilation demonic wolf Flagreo was an ancient god that had mixed two non-neighboring pathways. Beyond her characteristics, therefore, he was extremely crazy and almost irrational. His goal was to destroy and corrupt everything. Hence, he guessed that the Evernight goddess might have some things to do with the ancient god, Flagreo, from Grozel's travels. He learned that one of the two subsidiary gods in the demonic wolf king had gone missing after he perished, while the other had submitted to the phoenix ancestor. Furthermore, the true name corresponding to the death of the Thapok, Mr. Azek's father. With that, he could vaguely connect the goddess of misfortune, Nemesis, and the Evernight goddess. At this moment, when he saw her real name, he wasn't too shocked. Instead, he felt relieved and felt as though he were on firm ground. In addition, he was even more fearful of the Evernight goddess, because she didn't want the ancient god Flagreo to be revived. The goddess controlled the various matters of the seer pathway, preventing beyonders who aren't cleared by her to advance further. That's right. Does that mean... Shut up! Does that mean that she's the one who, maybe put him in the cocoon so he, could do the whole thing? That's right, the elasticity in the afternoon town mentioned, who tempted Dark Angel Sasri, the left-handed god and the deputy of the divine kingdom, but he couldn't say the name, as if he had been erased. Isn't this the demonstration of concealment power? Other than the places like the Giant King's Court, there's no way to say the name Evernight Goddess and Emences together. Even if one did, no one would be able to hear it. There are two people who converted Rose Redemption. One is Dark Angel Sasri, who convened Rose Redemption. One is Dark Angel Sasri, and the other is the goddess. Apart from the venue where the ploy was conceived, it's filled with the forces of concealment. In other words, the goddess has single-handedly directed the fall of the ancient sun god. In other words, the goddess has single-handedly directed the fall of the ancient sun god, started the cataclysm, and ended the third epoch. Compared to her, be it Adam or Amon, they are still far from her. Oh my god, what a queen. What an absolute queen. Crazy. That's so crazy. I literally don't know what to say. How could such a true deity be so easily trapped by atoms and arrangements and be unable to interfere with matters of the real world? Although it's not a conspiracy or something the goddess yearns for the most used, making her willing to walk onto the trap, how could the goddess who wields the powers of concealment and plotted the death of the City of Silver creator be unprepared? Also, what does "this is also in line with his thoughts" mean? Who does he refer to? Yeah, now I'm confused. Oh my god, no, now I'm so confused. After understanding so much hidden history, I will digest the Scholar of Yore potion on the spot once I drink it. With this in mind, Klein raised his right hand and rubbed his temples, forcing himself to focus his thoughts elsewhere. When the elastic phantom mentioned the fourth king of angels, it self-destructed was because the remaining three became true gods. However, the residents of the City of Silver would occasionally use the names Badhill and Heinerberger, so it wasn't in their anomaly. What is the difference? The strongest amongst the kings of angels is the left-hand god Sasri. Why did he disappear into the rivers of history? Perhaps he is one of the present-day evil gods, the true creator, the dark side of the universe, the mother tree of desire. Well, is it the ancient sun god? Is that the ancient sun god? Are there remnants of godhood and degradation outside the hall that was left behind him? Yes, the birth of the true creator is related to the Rose Redemption. Or is it the true... How will he react when he sees the murals in the hall? What a thought. He doesn't want me saying his name. He doesn't want... I'm not allowed to talk about them. I'm not allowed to say their names. With that thought, Klein cast his gaze at Shepherd Elder Lovia, as he should. The lady looked a little lost. She didn't seem to understand the titles and names, but she recognized the portion of them. For example, Angel of Fate Aurora Boreas. She'd become a believer of the true creator in the temple ruins left behind by Aurora Boreas. Derek also stole a glance at Elder Lovia, but he didn't notice any obvious changes in her emotions. I do. As the son of the Tarot Club, Derek was one of the people present who knew the situation in the outside world the most. Furthermore, he had long known that the King of Angels were. He suspected that 3 of them had later become deities. At this moment, he was at least confused and perplexed. He was only slightly shocked at Rose Redemption level. This was more exaggerated than he had imagined. It's no wonder that the Lord perished. Derek was first enlightened before he felt his heart turn heavy. At this moment, he swept his gaze and saw the chief's face turn pale and ugly. He even muttered a few words softly. This is impossible. This is impossible. As far as I can remember, the chief has never lost his composure like this. Did he think that the Lord perishing due to the Rose Redemption? He can't accept that he will never return. However, he had long learned this from me. Just as Derek was feeling puzzled, he discovered that aside from his tightly pursed lip, the chief's expression had returned to normal. In the minds of the other members of the exploration team, the prophecy they had previously learned in Afternoon Town appeared. Omnipotent Lord, I repent. Tempted Sasri, the king often came to the palace belonging to Dusk to conspire. It was already too late by the time I discovered all of this. Degradation, bloodshed, darkness, rot, murders, corruption, and shadows had already drowned this piece of land. A huge calamity will begin here. Ham, who was holding the unshadowed crucifix, took a long while to calm his emotions. He said in a slightly hoarse voice, "This is the place belonging to Dusk. These are the subsidiary gods and the kings of angels during the second epoch." Oh my fucking god! They plotted everything, causing a huge calamity to happen. They made the Lord forsake this land. Colin Iliad pulled out 2 swords in front of him and half turned around, calmly replying, "Most likely. If we can figure out what exactly happened back then, do we have a chance to please the Lord and let him look on this land again?" Upon hearing the chief's answer, Antiona asked anxiously. At this moment, Derek seemed to see a trace of pity and sadness in the chief's eyes. He heard him acknowledge and say, "Perhaps. Then let's continue exploring." The other teammates pleaded with burning eyes. This was the closest the city of Silver had gone to a glimmer of hope. Oh my god, I'm gonna cry! I'm gonna cry! This was the closest they had gone to a glimmer of hope. Over the past 2,000-3,000 years, none of them wished to let it go, even if they had sacrificed their lives for it. Colin Iliad slowly surveyed the area and said, "Don't forget the principles of upholding during explorations. Don't act rashly at any time." Oh no, do I have to rejoin the room? Bro, I'm actually gonna cry. This is so sad. These poor people. They literally thought that, like, things were gonna be happy and good. It didn't load. Let me do it again. Oh, there it is. It's there. Okay. They literally thought that things are gonna be happy and, like, good. And this is about to be so sad. Because everything they thought is a lie. Having confirmed that this place is related to redemption, we can always come to the second time, a third time, or even more. There's no need to be so impatient. Upon hearing his words, the other members of the exploration team calmed down. They replied one after another. "Yes, Your Excellency." Under the arrangements of Demon Hunter Colin, the remaining members split up into small groups and carefully searched the hall. They didn't discover anything else and was valued beyond the murals. Of course, it wasn't that there was no such thing. This was, after all, a divine kingdom. Of the ancient gods, what seemed like an ordinary long table, chairs, stone pillars, torches might have simple special effects when taken outside. Furthermore, those effects could last. My voice has always been like this. What are you talking about? Alas, it was convenient for the City of Silver's expedition team to bring them around, as they lacked principled value. As for the other murals, they were profiled from different angles. From the main mural, we combined to form three-dimensional scene. After completing the search, Derek and company gathered again and followed Chief to the exit at the back of the hall. There was a gray-blue door with a single pane. With a 10-meter-tall door between the two of them, Colin Iliad carefully observed for a while before finally saying, "There's a powerful guard outside." Chapter 1119. Crazy. Upon hearing the chief's words, Shepherd Lovia immediately raised her question. Just like the two silver knights at the front gate of the king's court, it won't take the initiative to attack targets outside a certain range. Kali Iliad nodded slightly and said, "At least this is how it seems to be at the moment." They were already near the exit, but the guard outside had no reaction. This meant that the other party didn't possess real intelligence or spirituality. It was very likely that there were objects that came to life. Without waiting for other members to speak, Demon Hunter Colin continued. Huge, heavy. After obtaining the corresponding information, the City of Silver's group formed a tactical understanding. The team opened the distance from the exit, but they faced towards the door, protected by Shepherd Elder Lovia as bait to attract the guards. The team took the corresponding holy oil from the chief and smeared it across the ground at the exit. Ham, who held the unshattered crucifix, and Demon Hunter Colin stood by the side of the door and used the stone columns to hide. Then Colin Iliad seized one of the swords onto his back and took out a small metal bottle, gulping down the liquid inside. His aura rapidly faded away and wasn't obvious anymore. If one didn't look closely, they would be able to discover his existence. This was another setup. Ham was in the open while Demon Hunter was hidden. After another 10 seconds, Shepherd Lovia stretched her right hand and grabbed at thin air. Her silver-gray hair was dyed a deep blue color. The wind howled and the grayish-blue door opened. Right on the heels of that, heavy footsteps could be heard, causing the entire hall to shake. We only have 1.5 more chapters. We're good. A giant covered in iron-colored armor rusted to the wall with the hibbard in hand. Its exposed parts didn't show any flesh or blood, as though they were made of metal. Behind the black mask was a dark red glow. If it didn't move, it stood there. It wouldn't be any different from a statue. Tap, tap, tap. The shrinking in the hall became more and more anxious. The glint statue suddenly threw out a halberd in his hand, stirring up the hurricane that tore towards Derek and company at the door. The halberd struck an invisible barrier, and the illusory ripples rapidly spread outside. In front of Shepherd Lovia, an illusory figure that wore silver armor had appeared at some point in time. It stabbed its great sword into the crack of the floor. The giant statue didn't stop in the rain into the hall. At that moment, the whistling sound was heard under its feet as its massive body jerked backwards. It had stepped onto the spot where the smeared with holy oil. As the giant statue fell, the crimson light in its eyes suddenly bloomed, and the invisible force appeared and held it up. Suddenly, a blinding white light shot out from the unshadowed crucifix, uncuratedly hitting the giant statue's only eye. The dark red color dimmed. Demon Hunter Colin Iliad leaped up and held the same sword with both hands, plunging it down in the earth's eagle under the prey. Dawn appeared as they converged on the straight sword, making the exceptionally huge and even exceedingly Colin Iliad height. With proof and bright sword pierced down the gap in the giant statue's armor, stabbing into the eye. A flood of light from the dawn rushed in. With the hand still gripping the hilt of the sword, Colin Iliad exerted more force. As the giant statue fell to the ground, he pulled out his sword and leaped to the side. The iron statue at the door emitted cracking sounds until it finally all moved. Without looking at it again, Colin turned and looked around the window. Outside a few seconds, he said, "There's no other guards for me now. We can handle the statue." Derek and company quickly surrounded the giant statue and skillfully searched for material. Above the great fog, Klein watched the entire battle from the sidelines and was deeply impressed by the City of Silver's teamwork. According to his observation, it was unknown that the metal in the giant statue was made of. Its surface was covered in armor that was shocking defensive strength. It could completely ignore most attacks in battle, and it was very difficult to deal with. Furthermore, the giant statue didn't have any spirit, or other words, it was immune to beyonder powers in the corresponding domain, such as spirit body threads control. Hypnotism, frenzy, and nightmare. It was like a walking forest that made out of a spectator at its work of the goddess of harvest. Klein believed that. If he were in the shoes and the core powers of bizarre sorcerer being useless, he could only rein in the two marionettes' powers to deal with the giant statue. He had no idea how the battle would develop. The distortion and disorder powers of the Earl of the Fallen might be effective, but I might not be able to finish it as fast as the City of Silver expedition team. The team Beyonders, with the tactical understanding, would be able to produce an effective 1 + 1 is equivalent to 2. Yes, the chief's confidence in timing as well as the defensiveness in his attacks was also key. Clyde nodded slightly, feeling a sense of admiration. If there were really a live stream, then he might not be able to help but send a gift and tip. Of course, there was a high chance that it was as thought. Kami, let me live. Let me live, bro. I am struggling already. Of course, there was a high chance that it was just as thought. After taking away the most valuable item on the giant statue, the City of Silver's expedition team processed forward. They followed the corridor outside and entered another hall. Just like that, they weaved through the layers of palaces, towers, and different corridors in an attempt to find more clues, as well as the entrance to the sea as described by the outsider Jack. Regardless of whether they believed the boy's words, they couldn't help but look forward to the dark blue sea behind the giant king's court. On the other side of the sea, there were kingdoms where humans flourished. There were no monsters hidden in the darkness. The sun rose and set. The lightning only appeared when it rained. People had all sorts of food there. During this process, the City of Silver's expedition team did encounter many enemies. Most of them were statues that had come to life. A small number of them were evil spirits formed by the combination of remnant emotions and the power of dusk that later was unable to put up any resistance against the unshadow crucifix. It's normal. The fool Klein above the great fog nodded slightly, expressing his acceptance of the current situation. After the giant king perished, the palace already belonged to the ancient sun god. It's unlikely that there were any large numbers of giant powerhouses and mythical items left behind. When the king of angels were conspiring, they definitely eliminated any unnecessary troubles ahead of time. Once the ancient sun god was eaten up, the ownership of the palace was a mystery. Perhaps it was abandoned. In short, there aren't many foreseeable demigods or items. Well, without the unshadowed crucifix, those evil spirits will be very troublesome. The City of Silver's expedition team might not be able to advance so smoothly, making it impossible for them to advance so far unless an angel leads them to an activities, a grade 0 sealed artifact. When the unshadowed crucifix returns to Derek, the City of Silver's expedition team was already very close to the tallest building in the giant king's court. The dusk here was extremely dense, as though it came from the palace. Once we leave this hall, we should come to the wing of the giant's residence. Demon Hunter Colin got his bearings and direction before pointing ahead. Shepherd Elder Lovia nodded. Finally, there was some irresistible hope in her expression. Derek's heart beat faster as he could no longer control his excitement. Then, he was placated by Antiona. After composing themselves and people from the City of Silver entered the hall. In front of them, he saw that there were oil paintings hanging on both sides. These oil paintings depicted different giants. Some held bone flutes, some carved wind chimes. Others carried a 7-stringed guitar and matched their heights. As the City of Silver's expedition team arrived, the giants and the oil paintings suddenly came to life. They began playing their instruments, producing a beautiful tune. The light of dusk in the hall lit up a little. More and more food appeared in the long tables around them, and they glowed with the tempting glistening infused with very tempting fragrance. Roasted chicken, roasted goose, fish with honey base. Is this a dinner banquet for the giant king's court? But aren't the size of those chickens, geese, goats, and fish a little too large? The work of the goddess is harvest. With a glance, Klein confirmed that the food that appeared was an illusion. After all, the giant king's court no longer had any ingredients, nor did it possess anyone who could envision or create them. This is normal food. Ham, who was holding thunderous god's roar, started straight as the long tables. Adam's apple bobbed. As whose apple bobbed? Who was holding thunder's god's roar, stared straight at one of the long table as Adam's apple bobbed. Maybe. Derek sniffed and couldn't help but Did I read that right? Wait. Okay. As his Adam's apple bobbed. I did not read it right. Maybe Derek's stiff couldn't help but swallow his mouthful of saliva. Apart from the black-faced grass, they had never thought, oh my god, they'd never seen normal food. I read it, yeah. Normal food. This meant that the monsters could roast was different colors, but they also tasted equally as bad. They could even poison them. Demon Hunter Colin shared a few seconds before sighing. They're all fake. Don't come into contact with them or there might be any unnecessary accidents. Other than Lovia, the team from the city of Silver attracted their gaze with great difficulty. They followed the chief all the way to the exit of the hall. After the series of inspections, Colin Iliad inserted his swords into the ground and pushed open the heavy door. The crack appeared with rich orange light shone inside. As the gap grew bigger, the tower place gradually became clearer. Then the people inside the city of Silver heard a crashing sound. At this moment, Colin drew out his sword and suppressed the restlessness in his team's heart. He then drew his other sword and slowly walked out of the hall. Derek and the others followed cautiously. After completely bathing in the light of dusk, they looked at the left at the same time. They were railings formed in the stone pillars. Beyond the railings there was an orange-red cloud and a gently ebbing the distance. On the endless swath of the dark blue, they emanated crashing sounds. There was no need for anyone to explain. At the same time, the members of the City Silver expedition team recalled the records of the books in Jack's description. A term flashed in their minds: the sea. Do you think if they kill all their enemies beyond the sea that they'll finally be free? Oh my god. No, fuck, I wish I wasn't sick. I want to keep reading. I want to read. Dude, so much just happened. I don't even know how to comprehend all of this. Bro, they just found the sea beyond the walls. And they had to go through giants to get to there. Oh my god. Okay. No, literally. Okay, well, I guess that's all I got. Because the next few chapters are together. And I don't know if I'll be able to make it through. Oh my god, you know what? Actually, to make up for not being able to read the next few chapters. Also, for all y'all who doubted me, I told you I would make it to chapter 20. I was doing it. Okay, let me look. Bro, I'm so excited to watch this get animated. Bro, they look so cool. Just the whole scene. It's in the... No, cause not them doing the Last Supper. No, cause not them doing the Last Supper, cause they do portray him. It's literally the Last Supper. Crazy. One of you will betray me. The Evernight goddess is Judas. Oh my god. And then the ones who eat him have silverware. Dude, crazy. Hold up. Why is Amon there? Is that Amon? Why is he there? I recognize that monocle anywhere. Dude, crazy. Oh my god. These are so cool. I'm so excited for this to get animated. I'm so excited. And then the true creator. Do you guys see the similarity? Honestly, I think we kind of look alike. Perfect. Okay, well, no, I guess like he is his son or whatever. And like, I guess he would be there. Other than that, that's all I got today. Thank you guys so much for joining. I am gonna do tomorrow. Hold up. What's the last one you added? Oh my god. It's so cool. And they found the sea. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. There will be stream tomorrow. I will probably sound like a man, but, you know, what else is new? No, and I can almost guarantee you, it will get deeper by tomorrow. That is just kind of the way it is. So, that's all I got. Appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your day or night. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.